Chapter 26. Alfred returned from hell in the world. On the third floor, the bald boss is in a pretty good mood. The kid before was just a money-making tool for him, and a little offense was nothing. The most important thing was that he had reached a cooperation with another local gangster, and he would be able to make a lot of money in the near future. He's already thinking about what's next. He sat on the sofa and smoked a cigar happily, wondering if he wanted to invite a beautiful woman to spend today's beautiful night to celebrate. However, at this moment, the bald boss suddenly realized that his forehead was sweating. Surprised, he stretched out his hand to wipe his head and found that his hand was full of sweat. Suddenly, he was a little strange. Why did the temperature rise so much tonight? You must know that the temperature in coastal towns has never been higher than 20 degrees at night. How could it make people sweat? However, he did not wait for the bald boss to think about it. The disaster that followed shattered all his thoughts. Rumble. The whole building suddenly vibrated crazily, and the strong vibration immediately attracted the attention of everyone in the whole building. Whether everyone was sleeping or drinking, everyone who was eating immediately panicked and ran away. In a panic, everyone just ran from the building to the open place outside, and the vibration came from the ground again ferociously. Boom! In the next second, a figure wrapped in raging flames broke through the first floor and then smashed the entire building in an instant. Everyone felt that the ground was shaking, and the sky was filled with gravel and broken glass, which fell from the air and hit many gangsters. Damn, what is that? The last bald boss, who ran out in a panic, turned his head and looked at the building that was almost crumbling and collapsing. He was shocked and angry, but when he saw the creature entangled in flames and soaring in the sky, his eyes immediately changed. Startled. Behind him is a large group of disgraced gangsters and controlled children. Everyone raised their heads and looked up at the sky. In the originally dark night, they saw a magnificent creature with flames spreading its wings and screaming upwards. Is that a phoenix? Is it Phoenix? So beautiful above the sky. In the beautiful and noble biological starry sky, the bright stars formed a mysterious pattern. Upon closer inspection, it was exactly the same as the phoenix. At this time, a loud cry resounded through the sky, and the soaring phoenix fluttered its wings wrapped in flames, circled in the sky a few times, and finally swooped down towards the old building. A powerful breath swept across the sky. The boss and others in the old building were sweating involuntarily, and everyone immediately turned around and ran outside. However, the speed of the phoenix was too fast, and finally smashed heavily on the old building, directly piercing through the old duplex building and hitting the ground. Boom! The terrible air waves swept all directions with the impact of dust and smoke, and all the walls along the way were smashed by the impact. The bald boss and a group of gangsters, including the controlled children, were caught off guard and were directly thrown into the air, and finally hit the ground, howling in pain. Ah, my leg is broken. My arm, whoever is holding my arm, get up quickly. The walls surrounding the old building collapsed. Among the ruins, the bald boss and a group of people were crushed by rubble. Many died on the spot. Of course, most of them were gang members. I don't know if it was accidental or on purpose. There was nothing wrong with those kids. Fortunately for the bald boss, he was not injured. At the last moment, he grabbed a subordinate in time to block him, allowing the latter to resist the first wave of impact, and most of the subsequent crushed stones hit his subordinates. The bald boss threw himself on the ground and found that his back was soaked in blood, and his subordinates had lost their voices. He hurriedly tried to push him away and shouted, "Damn it, come and help me. Go and help the boss. Help the boss, come on, you idiots." Several subordinates didn't care about the group of dead companions and hurriedly got up and ran to the bald man's side, removing the gravel and corpses that were pressing on him. The boss was supported by several subordinates and hurriedly shouted, "Run! Don't worry about this place." The voice was a little hurried. For some reason, he felt as if he was being stared at by something, like being stared at by a ferocious beast, which would pounce on him at any time and break his neck. The feeling made him almost suffocate. Instinct drove him to leave here. Thinking of the unknown ghost that fell from the sky just now, running away is the most correct choice. As for the life and death of those little ghosts, he doesn't care at all. But unfortunately, just as the bald boss voice fell, from the dust and smoke all over the sky of the old building, a majestic and terrifying momentum filled the air in an instant. The space with a radius of several hundred meters seemed to be paused, making the boss and everyone else unable to move. It was as if the body was no longer his own. A wordless fear spread from the heart. Damn, what happened? The boss's pupils kept turning. His heart burst into rage, and his ferocious face twitched uncontrollably, as ugly as a ghost. The group of children behind them was also full of fear, and many of them had tears in their eyes. Tread, tread, tread. At this moment, in the dust and smoke of the collapsed old building, there was a sound of crisp footsteps. The footsteps were unhurried, but it seemed as if death was approaching, and the sound kept trampling on the hearts of the bald boss and the group of people. Smiley face. Let the fear in their hearts increase a bit. The bald boss and the others stared intently at the dust and smoke, and under the wisps of flames, a figure loomed. Finally, the figure finally came out from the dust and smoke. When seeing this figure, the pupils of the bald boss and the group of children behind him shrank suddenly. This person turned out to be Alfred, who was supposed to die. Unlike the image in tattered clothes and covered in blood, Alfred's dirt has long since disappeared, and the clothes on his upper body have disappeared, revealing streamlined and strong muscles. He is completely different from the thin body at the beginning, and his temperament has also undergone a huge change. If the previous Alfred had a weak and cowardly temperament, now he is like an avenger who returned from hell. He has accomplished an incredible transformation. Writing a novel can get you online. I'm also drunk. My buddy is a stinky novel writer. Can you not put such a big crime on my buddy? I can't afford it. Chapter 27. I have seen your sins, blasphemer. Short, slightly messy brown hair danced with the phoenix-shaped flame behind her. In the light and shadow, one can see the pair of eyes under Lu-Hai containing the flames of burning hatred, indifferent and ruthless. Ah, Alfred, the pupils of the bald boss and everyone present shook violently. They had no idea that the person who caused the destruction was actually Alfred, who was supposed to die. But how is this possible? How does a dead person come back to life? And inexplicably has a powerful and incomparable power. Everyone's hearts were filled with great waves, while the bald boss and other gangsters couldn't help feeling a little fear in their hearts. They have every reason to believe that a group of people who personally created each other's death will have a miserable end. They want to resist, but they can't even control their bodies, just like meat on a felt board. Tread, tread. As the footsteps gradually approached, the clear voice caused everyone's heart to resonate, and the strong sense of breath oppression made their hearts a little lack of blood supply and their faces turned pale. Alfred slowly walked in front of the bald boss, looking up at him slightly because of his height, but the sharp contrast made Alfred, who was slightly shorter in stature, look like a superior who ruled his life. The cold gaze hurt the eyeballs of the bald boss, causing him to shed tears involuntarily. The bald boss showed fear and wanted to say something, but the words couldn't come out in his throat. Alfred looked at the man in front of him, didn't say a word, but walked straight to the outside and talked with the bald guy. The members of the big gang and the group of controlled children passed by. He won't kill me? Why? Why did he let me go? I cannot die. The damned was resurrected and gained great power. I must take revenge. Maybe I can have a chance to seize the power of this bastard. The bald boss, who thought he was bound to die, had ups and downs in his heart at this time, from despair at the beginning to joy later, and resentment at the end. But, will Alfred really let these dirty scumbags go? The answer is naturally no. Step by step, he skipped the crowd and walked out of the old building that once brought him darkness. He stood outside the road with his back to the crowd, and turned his head to look at the end of the road. There, he did not know when he appeared several figures. Magneto in black clothes with a cloak on his shoulders and a brown-purple helmet on his head, Mystique with blue skin, and a strong saber-toothed tiger. There is also Professor Charles and the X-Men in a wheelchair. In Alfred's super senses, he felt strong malice. That child, Professor Charles, who was sitting in a wheelchair, reflected the boy's figure in his eyes, and seemed to see the phoenix burning in the boundless purgatory in a daze. Professor, is he the third saint? Cyclops Scott said, standing beside the professor. Both Storm Girl and Phoenix Girl Chin looked at the boy and frowned. Although the distance is very far, they can feel the breath from the other party, which seems to come from the endless abyss of hell, that terrible sense of oppression, which makes people palpitate. Especially Chin. She was inexplicably lost in thought. He is the third saint. He is very dangerous now, Eric. Charles turned his head to look at Magneto and persuaded him again. He is now a volcano that is about to erupt at any time. Once such power erupts, it may the entire city will be destroyed in an instant. Eric, it's too late to give up now. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw screams resounding through the night sky and the ruins of the collapsed old building behind the young man. The 30 or so gangsters thought they had narrowly escaped death, but they were still rejoicing just now, and then they found that their bodies started to spontaneously combust out of thin air, and they seemed to have hallucinations amidst the severe pain. They seemed to have come to hell, in the terrible hell, enjoying the most painful burning punishment, and the innocent souls, children, women, and old people who had been killed by their own hands turned into bloodthirsty evil spirits to come to revenge. These dead souls used sharp claws and teeth to tear and bite off their necks, and pulled out their hearts, ignoring their painful and desperate wailing, while asking questions. Why? Why did you kill us? Why? Why did you kill me? The questioning and murmuring were like sharp swords piercing through their souls, and they felt the indescribable pain, almost driving them crazy, until their flesh and blood were torn apart, leaving only bloodshot skeletons and bones. A ray of soul fire in the two dark eyes dissipated with their regret and despair. The children who were controlled outside looked at the hateful villains who were on fire in horror, and were finally burned to ashes by the flames. The fire of evil dissipated, and that light also washed away the fear, inferiority, and fear in the hearts of these children. These children have always existed in the life of oppression and beatings, and there are even some who covet them. Day after day, year after year, they gradually become numb. But in the numbness, they always fantasize about escaping from such a life. Curse those villains too. When that day really came, the fire in my heart was ignited. Only then did they realize that when the group of villains turned into ashes, the aura that was pressing on them dissipated. They looked at each other, turned around and looked at the back of Alfred in front of them. At this time, in their perspective, that the back that is not too tall looks so stalwart. Is he the messenger sent by God to save us? Who knows, but he is the hero who saved us. Alfred, who was admired by the couple and stared at with gratitude. The flame of revenge in his heart followed the death of the bald bosses, not only did not go out, but became more vigorous. After returning from hell, he has an incomparable obsession, that is, to hate evil and all the scum in this world. He is a phoenix, and he will be all villains, sinful and fearful, the of death. He put his eyes on Magneto, and said coldly, I have seen your sins, blasphemer. Boom. A ball of fire broke through the ground in an instant, and a long line of fire was printed along the road. The ground was scorched black, and his figure stood in front of Magneto and others in the next second. I don't need to do nucleic acid tomorrow, rest early today, and I can resume tomorrow's update. Thank God. I get up early every morning to do nucleic acid, and the jet lag is all messed up already. Chapter 28. Fist cracks the sky, 1/6, boom, from the extreme speed to the extreme standstill. The huge impact created a strong wind, and the trees planted on both sides of the road were bent down by the blowing. The wind was howling, and Sheen took the initiative to form a barrier with powerful mental power to block everyone in front of them, so that they didn't embarrass them. So fast, so strong, the eyes can't keep up with this speed. Saber-toothed Tiger, Mystique, and Scott looked solemn and exclaimed in their hearts. These people are undoubtedly the top group of mutants. Even the weakest Mystique, who has experienced hundreds of battles and has excellent actual combat experience, but in a few tenths of a second when facing Alfred, she passed through with a distance of 100 meters. This speed is really shocking. Involuntarily, several people have begun to become vigilant. A blazing fire flashed across Alfred's eyes, and the surrounding air boiled like boiling water, and the temperature gradually began to rise, making people feel like they were in a hot desert. Dangerous, extremely dangerous. Cold sweat broke out on the foreheads of everyone. Even if they were as strong as Magneto, they felt that something was wrong. Damn, this newly awakened strength has far exceeded his expectations. The most important thing was that he couldn't feel the magnetism of the young man in front of him. You must know that everyone's body and blood contain a trace amount of human magnetic field and iron element. Magneto can perceive and control any form of magnetic field, so everyone is like a glowing light bulb in his eyes. Just look at the brightness. Is it weak or strong? As long as he wants, he can manipulate the magnetic field of the human body at any time, or the iron element will kill it. But he couldn't feel the magnetic field in the boy's body. How could this not surprise Magneto? Magneto discovered that the situation seemed to be faintly out of control now. The young man seemed to have a lot of hostility towards him, and the madness of his senses issued an early warning, telling him to stay away from this young man, or he might die. Charles, rarely. Magneto became nervous. His face was full of vigilance, and he shouted without looking back. Charles frowned, took a deep breath, looked at Alfred, and said gently with apology, Son, we are not hostile. We just hope to get your help. I need to save an innocent life. I'm sorry for doing this to you. I will apologize to you afterwards." After finishing speaking, the astonishing spiritual energy spewed out instantly and invaded Alfred's mind overwhelmingly. That's right, Eric hijacked the ex-school student, asking him to control a saint. This is why Charles said that Eric was crazy before, because he knows very well that no one wants to be controlled by others, especially for a man. Once he is found to control the fighters he chooses, he must anger. But for that child, he had to do it. Charles is still lucky. He is very confident in his ability. Maybe that will not find out? However, what happened next was beyond Charles's imagination. The moment the powerful psychic energy invaded Alfred's mind, Charles suddenly discovered that the boy's will was as firm as a mountain, and his psychic energy could not be shaken at all. And in a trance, he saw the young soul as a beautiful phoenix soaring in the starry sky. Sensing his spiritual energy, the phoenix raised its noble head and let out a loud cry. Boom. A terrifying spiritual force completely inferior to Charles erupted instantly, swallowing all the spiritual energy that Charles had invaded. Puff, sitting in a wheelchair, Charles's face suddenly turned pale, and a mouthful of blood spewed out from his mouth. The powerful collision of mental power burst out a terrifying impact energy, and the entire thoroughfare instantly shattered, and a deep pit with a diameter of tens of meters suddenly emerged. X-Men, Magneto and others were instantly blown away by this energy. Even Chine's mental barrier was shattered. The buildings on both sides of the road collapsed like dominoes. Fortunately, it was located in a remote place, and the building collapsed and the earthquake caused the people in the house to run away early. Even if there were still curious people, they were controlled by Professor Charles to leave with the help of spiritual energy. Otherwise, a lot of people would die just by doing this. Magneto and the others rolled in the air a few times in embarrassment. Smiley face. The saber-toothed tiger and Mystique adjusted their figures and fell down tens of meters away. Magneto seemed to have been prepared to control his own magnetic field so that he floated a few meters in the air for a short time. Middle. The X-Men also used their methods to land safely. But it's too late to breathe a sigh of relief. There was a voice that seemed to come from the netherworld. "You are courting death." Boom. The monstrous aura instantly overwhelmed the sky, like the awakening of the will of an ancient god. The whole earth began to vibrate crazily. The heavy mountain-like aura made the air almost solidify, and the squeezing ability instantly cracked the entire road. Layer after layer of plates appeared irregular shape. The powerful momentum suppressed Magneto and the others. Caught off guard, Mystique, Saber-Toothed Tiger, and Cyclops Scott were crushed to the ground, and even the specially made wheelchair that Professor Charles sat in was cracked. Hell. Chine, Magneto, and Professor Charles reacted very quickly, and the three instantly released their abilities, mental power, magnetic field, and spiritual power to form three semicircular barriers around Putrajaya to prevent themselves from being crushed. Storm Maiden Aluolio let out a yell. Her eyes turned white and lightning flashed. The dark clouds gathered in the sky, the billowing clouds rolled, and the thunder suddenly fell from the sky, and the Wanjun thunder pointed directly at Alfred, who was floating on the deep pit in the distance. Alfred tilted his head slightly. His body has completely completed the transformation, and the small universe of the sixth sense in his body is burning. Clenched his fist with his right hand and aimed at the sky with a heavy bang. Boom. In an instant, the sound of the sonic boom resounded instantly, and the exploding powerful punch instantly shattered the thunder in the sky, and the scattered lightning was wrapped in a backward roll, and the terrifying force even pierced through and scattered the dark clouds summoned by Storm. How can this be? Seeing this shocking scene, Storm couldn't help crying out. Today there will be a wave of little 6, and tomorrow there will be 7 to 10. Chapter 29. The force of the Phoenix, 2 of 6. Relying on its own strength, it pierced through the sky, and the rippling chi energy rippled like a galaxy above the sky, and the depressing breath made people feel like they were about to be crushed at a glance. Such mighty power actually only appeared in a teenage boy. This simply subverted the worldview of the Aurora people. Even if everyone understands that the young man in front of him is a holy warrior chosen by Athena, an existence that can fight against the gods, but that is only after he grows up. Everyone is the top mutant among the mutants, and they still have some pride in their hearts. But in the face of real power, that touch of pride was also shattered. It has to be said that Magneto King Eric miscalculated this time, and his plan has completely failed. Not only that, but he also has to consider whether he can escape in front of this furious saint. In the chilling atmosphere, No one noticed that a girl in a gray sweater and black tights was watching this battle with great interest on a towering bell tower 1,000 meters away. Under the hood, strands of soft golden hair danced in the wind, extremely chic. Under the moonlight, revealing that beautiful face, it was Kyle who rushed over. She is not bored to be a bystander, but to take care of Alfred, who was chosen by herself to be washed by divine power and to awaken the small universe. Also has a humanoid nuclear bomb that can easily destroy a city. Give some time to consolidate your cultivation. Starburst is no problem. Magneto and Charles will not be opponents at all, and the fact is the same. Alfred has the upper hand in the face of Magneto and Charles. The reason is very simple. Magneto, the ability that Professor X is proud of, has no effect on Saint Seiya. Saints are undoubtedly all-round fighters. After awakening the small universe, they will have various abilities. First of all, the most basic superhuman body and strength, speed, and the bronze-level Saints can reach the speed of sound. The stronger the speed of sound, the higher the double speed. This is especially true for the body. A strong physique is completely immune to all kinds of nuclear radiation, toxins, and virus curses. Just soaking in magma, tens of thousands of feet under the sea will not have any effect. With his body, he can destroy a nuclear furnace with his bare hands. And the defensive power is also directly full, and the destructive power cannot reach the level of smashing atoms, so it can't hurt the Saint's body. Even if Wolverine's sharp and indestructible adamantium alloy steel claws poke the Saint's body, it can't even leave the mark. The only possibility is to snap off his claws. Therefore, the attacks of Magneto and others are completely ineffective. As for Professor X's powerful psychic power attack, the same is true. The Saint Seiya is as tough as steel, and his spiritual power is as strong. Various abilities emerge endlessly, manipulating elements, predicting the future, flying into the sky, escaping from the earth, telekinetic power, mind reading, and spiritual power, barriers and more. It can be described as invincible in all directions. What is Hexagon Warrior? Tactical back, but the biggest hidden worry is Phoenix Girl Cheen, her host chosen by the power of the Phoenix. In times of crisis, once the power of the Phoenix wakes up, the cosmic level energy is not comparable to the current Alfred. Her noble blue jewel-like eyes reflected the woman with wine-red hair, whispering, "Did you notice me?" Very sharp, kilometers away, trying to support the barrier to resist Alfred's erupting terrifying aura. Cheen, who was originally a little difficult, seemed to feel a lot easier for some reason, and her mental strength seemed to grow several times out of thin air. Cheen is a bit strange. Frowning her thin eyebrows, she always felt as if she was being stared at by a terrifying existence, and somehow felt a sense of fear like the sky falling. But in front of the enemy, she didn't have time to think about it, and she didn't notice at all. A red light flashed in her eyes. This time is only a short second. Alfred tore the sky apart with one punch, and turned his gaze to Magneto and Professor Charles. He awakened and understood the small universe, and he has become a saint, and at the same time he understands his responsibilities, and he has great respect for the Athens that gave him a new life. Non-naturally has a good impression. From his perspective, the old man with the helmet has a mark on his body, and this mark represents the breath of blasphemy. Blasphemers must be judged, and Charles and others who help blasphemers naturally also need to be judged. The cold and piercing gaze hurt Eric. He already understood that the situation was out of control. Even the newly awakened saint fighters were no longer comparable to them. If they didn't handle it well, they would all die here. Charles. Magneto stared at Alfred, whose body was gradually glowing red and fluorescent in the distance, and shouted without looking back. Charles knew what Eric was thinking, put his hands on the armrests, resisted the severe pain that was about to split his head, and gritted his teeth. It's only 2 seconds at most. Boom. The sound exploded, accompanied by the dull, thunderous voice. You don't even have a tenth of a second. The air wave exploded, and Alfred's figure tore through the air, and rushed to Professor Charles and the others in the blink of an eye. The so-called 3 barriers could not resist his powerful body at all, and smashed the 3 barriers with his physical body. Charles, Magneto, and Cheen spit out a mouthful of blood instantly. Under everyone's surprised and angry eyes, Alfred reached out and grabbed Charles's neck, lifting him directly from the wheelchair. Perron's strength almost suffocated Professor Charles. Instinctively, he stretched out his hands and grabbed the hand pinching his neck. His face flushed, and he said with difficulty, We have no malicious intentions. Charles, let go of the professor, asshole." The X-Men saw Professor Charles in pain. Their teeth were about to crack, and they roared angrily. The sky appeared again. The wind raged, thunder intertwined and flickered, and Cyclops put his hand on the special purple quartz glasses, waiting to launch an energy shock at any time. The so-called no malice. Do you want to control me? Use Athena's power and world influence to change people's oppression of mutants. Chapter 30. Phoenix vs. Phoenix, March 6th. Facing Alfred's disdainful words, everyone present did not have any refutation. But there was no regret in his heart. The three of Magneto are easy to say. For them, there is no doubt that what they regret is that they underestimated the power of Saint Seiya. Their plans were not thorough enough and too rough. As for Cyclops, Scott, Storm and Jean are completely on their side. The three of them and the professor are just to save the life of the child coerced by Magneto, and Professor Charles just uses his psychic power to change some of Alfred's thoughts and will not harm him. Although Alfred is still young, but with rich experience, coupled with the metamorphosis super sense, he can see the thoughts of these blasphemers at a glance. Not to mention the slightest respect for Athena, and it is taken for granted that people will control and change at will. The disgust in my heart grew stronger. With a murderous intent, Alfred did not want to talk nonsense and said softly, "I will sentence you according to Athena's will. You will go to forever." Kacha, gently exerting force with his right hand. With the crisp sound of bones breaking, Charles tilted his head, and the light in his eyes completely disappeared. One of the greatest mutant leaders ever, Professor X, dies. Not only that, with a flash of fire, Professor Charles's body was swallowed by raging flames and turned into ashes and scattered in the air almost in the blink of an eye. Everyone's eyes reflected that Professor Charles's black ash was blowing away with the wind, and everyone was stunned for a while. Charles. Magneto King Eric's eyes widened in disbelief, and he murmured involuntarily. He couldn't believe that his old friend and rival, Charles, died in front of him like this. Moreover, the cause of death is still because of himself. Saber-toothed Tiger doesn't care much about this. He has nothing to do with Professor Charles at all. But Mystique, the three X-Men, suffered the biggest blow. For Mystique, she was taken in by Charles when she was young and became brother and sister. When they grew up, they parted ways because of their ideals, but the relationship is here after all. As for the X-Men, Professor Charles has a different meaning. For the three of them, he is not only a gentle teacher, but also a close father and elder. Before, there is not even a corpse left. One can imagine how huge this blow is. The atmosphere seemed to freeze in an instant. However, they were not the only ones who were also hit. On the street 100 meters away, the running posture of a strong man in a brown coat and a peaked cap slowly stopped as Professor Charles turned into ashes. His eyes under the peaked cap were full of vicissitudes and disappointment. "Damn, am I still late?" "Charles." He muttered something, but when he saw Jean's tear-filled eyes gradually turning red, he was startled. Thinking of a series of tragedies in the future, he started to run wildly. While running, he roared, Jean, don't give up your beliefs, just be yourself." Heart-piercing roars resounded throughout the street. On the top floor of the clock tower, Kyle noticed the unexpected visitor, raised his eyebrows, and saw a soul in the man's body that did not belong to this time and space. A ray of gold flashed through the beautiful blue eyes, and through the man's soul, he saw that for mutants' miserable future. It turns out that Logan, the Wolverine 20 years later, with the help of the Phantom Cat, came to this point in time to try to change and reverse the future. The idea is good, but it's a pity. Kyle shook his head. In this universe, apart from those creation gods who have long been detached, only she and Kong the Conqueror can change the timeline of the Earth. Odin cannot do it because they are not qualified enough. Can only use one's own strength to change a little bit of the future direction. As for Logan, let alone. He was able to come to this point in time, which was already destined to happen long ago, and he was not out of the long river of fate at all. Logan ran anxiously and frantically, but before he got close to 50 meters, Alfred's majestic and terrifying aura was pressing on him, and his spine like steel and iron bones was crushed off guard, causing him to rush forward in a panic. Fell to the ground. Not only that, the terrible gravity is constantly squeezing his body organs. The cells, tissues, and organs in his body have been crushed to pieces in a short time. That is to say, the super self-healing ability allows his organ cells and tissues to continuously repair. Let him not die immediately, but he has already lost the ability to move. He lay on the ground, forced his head up, and looked at the picture that he has always remembered in his heart. And the woman he loves. He is the Wolverine Logan from the future. Knowing the tragic fate of future Qin and others, he chose to travel through time to come to this critical node, but he did not expect that it was still too late. Charles had already been killed, and then Qin will too. Sure enough, facing the death of the most respected professor in front of her, the shock made Qin completely lose her mind in an instant. In an instant, the strong impact, anger, disappointment, and regret made Qin's power run wild. The cosmic-level energy phoenix force hidden in the body burst out. With blood and tears in Qin's eyes, she roared heart-piercingly to the sky. Her wine-red hair stood on end, and the vast and surging power centered on her and rushed in all directions. Smiley face. Everyone around was instantly blown away by this crimson energy, and the ground along the way was like an earth dragon rolling, and a layer was shaved off by the force. The powerful energy was wrapped in dust and smoke, and the gravel swept and wreaked havoc on everything. Only Alfred reacted, felt the unparalleled majestic energy. He stood up straight. The small universe of the sixth sense burned instantly, and stretched out his hand to block in front of him. Boom. The two different but equally powerful forces collided together in an instant, just like sparks hitting the earth, and a natural disaster came. Chapter 31. Phoenix wings soaring to the sky. 4 out of 6. The collision of two monstrous forces caused the whole town to vibrate crazily. The powerful impact knocked down rows of surrounding houses and buildings, and the trees, cars, flowers, and plants were all annihilated by the impact and turned into dust. And the impacting airwaves are still raging towards the distance. If this continues, there is no doubt that the entire town will be completely reduced to ruins, and the people in the town will not be spared. And Alfred, who was at the center of the collision of the two forces in the depths, also saw this, and his expression changed suddenly. After going through so much, his heart is full of hatred for all criminals and scum, but it doesn't mean that he hates those innocent people, and of course he won't just sit idly by. If countless people died because of himself, then he would definitely fall into endless regret. But now his strength is in a stalemate with Phoenix and Kin. The other party's power is inexplicably powerful and scary, and the energy is still rising. He can't crush the other party immediately. He can only keep breaking out of small universes and stalemate with the opponent. What is this kind of power? Alfred was anxious. The opponent's power is not only powerful, but also very special. He can detect that it can change and shatter atoms. That is to say, it can also cause damage to him. He is not afraid of being injured, but once he withdraws his power, the opponent's majestic energy will instantly shatter the entire body. The town was directly devoured and smashed into an atomic state. The mind keeps running, but the best way is to stun or kill the mutant directly. That, Alfred made up his mind, and slightly raised his head to look at the ferocious-looking Phoenix female piano floating in midair tens of meters away. Her pupils were already colored red. Then burn my little universe, boom. The small universe in Alfred's body instantly burned like a raging flame. The burning of the small universe caused his power to rise rapidly in an instant. The terrifying energy and aura leaked out, and the space around him boiled like boiled water. The powerful energy overwhelms Qin's majestic energy with a crushing momentum. Not only that, Alfred has already set a posture. His legs are slightly bent, and his hands are forward and backward. His slightly messy brown hair stood on end, and his not-so-tall figure looked like a mighty giant at this moment. The surrounding world seems to be among the stars, and the bright stars behind it form a mysterious pattern, and a noble phoenix soars with wings and sings in the sky. The entire earth shook more and more violently, and the ground under his feet continued to crack. The crushed rocks on the ground were affected by powerful energy and began to gradually levitate. Seemingly feeling a fatal threat, she has lost her sanity, her eyes are darkened, and she stares at Alfred in front of him mercilessly and indifferently. The phoenix power in her body soars again, and the silhouette of a fire phoenix also appears behind her. A huge gap was opened in the sky, and the crack stretched for thousands of kilometers. The whole town is about to come to an end. All the people in the small town felt death, but the violent vibration made them unable to even run. They could only hug something beside them to stabilize their bodies, looking up at the sky with despair and panic, praying, "My God, is that the end of the world? The sky is actually split. God, save your believers. Great God, save innocent people. I don't feel like dying. I'm still young." In the face of the power of natural disasters, human beings have no ability to resist. They can only pray and pray for the blessing of the gods. The earth was shaking and the mountains were shaking. Amidst people's cries and screams, Alfred gritted his teeth and roared angrily to play the tactics belonging to the phoenix. Aim at the piano and punched. Phoenix wings fly to the sky. Boom. The phoenix wings on the back stretched out and rushed towards Chin with a boundless wave of air. This force was powerful enough to easily smash an asteroid, and Chin also roared angrily, not to be outdone. Unleash the power of the phoenix. Two powerful and devastating energies collided instantly. In the distance, Magneto, Mystique, Saber-toothed Tiger, Wolverine Logan and the others who were thrown away just got up, with their hands covering their faces, looking forward from the corner of their eyes, their faces full of horror. Chin, Cyclops Scott, Storm and Logan all look worried. I think we have to worry about ourselves first. Saber-toothed Tiger was speechless. He always felt that his stupid brother and the X-Men were out of their minds. Although I don't know why the Phoenix Girl has such a level of power, it is obvious that the energy of the two strong men is at odds, let alone whether they will die or not. The bystanders are definitely doomed. The saber-toothed tiger's super-strong senses have frantically called the police. He believes that if he is impacted by that level of energy, even if he has a strong self-healing ability, the probability of surviving is not high. Magneto is a sensible person. With one hand, he activates all his abilities and changes the surrounding magnetic field to form a powerful magnetic field defense circle. Not only that, he also manipulates all the surrounding metal elements to form a metal shield to block in front of him one by one. In front of oneself, as for other people. He can't control it now. Exist in everyone's eyes. The two almost desperate forces finally collided together. Boom. The collision of the two phoenixes produced a destructive air wave. This violent force swept in all directions, and the entire town shook violently. All the buildings collapsed row after row. The trees, flowers, and cars planted on the ground were blown by the air wave together. Perish. Outside the small town, under the influence of two forces, huge waves of boundless waves were rolled up. The whole scene is like the end of the world. Magneto and the others were thrown away in an instant in the magnetic field defense circle, and they were thrown away like cannonballs, smashing everything blocked along the way. The people in the small town watched the air wave, symbolizing death, sweeping in with despair and horror on their faces. In the last breath of death, they could only pray to the gods. Maybe it was people's prayers that helped. In that desperate moment, a miracle happened. A sacred and great power acts on the world of the small town out of thin air. Driven by this power, the whole town seems to have pressed the pause button, and everything freezes and stops. Chapter 32. Gold Sinkhole Isabella, 5 out of 6. The crazy earthquake stopped, and the shock of the earth-shattering air wave was frozen. The only thing that didn't freeze was the people in the town. At first, many people had already closed their eyes in despair and waited for death to come. But after a few seconds, they found that their ears seemed to have become quiet, and people opened their eyes in a daze. Just saw a horrifying scene. Everyone found that everything, visible and intangible, was frozen and stopped. The wreckage of cars in the sky, broken trees and flowers, and rubble from collapsed houses. Such a picture is surprising. What is this? Miracle, such power, only a great can do it. It must be Athena. Why must it be Athena? It may also be God. Fart. When did the you believe in appear in all these years? Athena is the only in this world. Impossible. Since Athena appeared, God must also exist, and God must bless his believers. Then tell your God to come out quickly. If it is really God, I will kneel down and become a believer in God. While the survivors rejoiced, they couldn't help arguing about which performed the miracle. In the noisy clamor, the sky seemed to be bright, and suddenly someone pointed at the sky and exclaimed, "Look, that's attracted by this voice. No matter who it is, subconsciously look up in the direction it points to." I saw that under a crack that stretched nearly thousands of kilometers, the dazzling sacred light spread all over the town. Amidst the vast and majestic sacred power, the thousands of kilometers of cracks were gradually repaired, and the sky recovered to the original appearance. In a trance, people seemed to see the goddess holding a victory scepter and wearing a crown of flowers and laurel from the sacred light. As the sacred light dissipated, night fell again. I seemed to see Athena. Me too, I just said. It must be a miracle performed by the goddess Athena, and her kindness spreads all over the world. The believers who believed in Athena became excited, cheered, and fell to their knees devoutly, thanking the goddess for saving them all. As for the believers who believed in God, they looked at each other in blank dismay. And at the center of the source of this disaster, Among the ruins 10,000 meters away, the Magneto and others who survived by luck but were in a panic lifted the stone slabs on their bodies, stood up and saw that time and space seemed like in the paused picture. Pupils shrank involuntarily. Looking up to the front, Alfred and Jean didn't know when the surging power on their bodies had calmed down. Only the frozen air waves impacted, and the motionless gravel and broken trees and flowers in the air. The two stood at a distance of less than 10 meters and looked at each other calmly. But what really caught their attention was a girl walking slowly in the distance, wearing a gray sweater, black tights, and a strand of golden hair dancing through the edge of the hood. There seems to be an indescribable rhythm between walking. With her beautiful face and those blue pupils, she seems to be just a pretty girl. But with every step, the space and time behind him returned to their original state again, and the gravel, sawdust, flowers, and plants in midair lost control and fell from the air. The energy shock wave generated by the collision of two powerful forces was soothed and dissipated by the inexplicable mighty force. The impact of this picture deeply impacted the hearts of Magneto and the others. There was a wave of waves in their hearts. They all knew very well that this girl was definitely a more powerful existence than Alfred, Jean, who exploded with inexplicable strength. It's too scary here. Why do such horrible existences keep popping up? The saber-toothed tiger murmured to himself. Now he regretted following Magneto. Before he fought life and death, besides making money, he worshipped Lao Wan's powerful power. But now, he felt that Lao Wan couldn't get along with him anymore. In the past, he thought that Lao Wan was very ambitious. He had the appearance of a hero, and he even dared to plot against the gods. Now his concept has changed. This is not a hero. He is simply an ignorant idiot. If he can survive, he will definitely turn around and run away. It's her, Wolverine Logan, who was beside Cyclops and the others, changed his expression, and he recognized the girl. Logan, do you know him? In this quiet environment, any sound was extremely harsh, and Logan's voice made Cyclops, Scott, and Storm look sideways, and Scott couldn't help asking. As for why Logan, who was supposed to leave, happened to come here, it didn't matter at all. He just wants to take Jean away from here as soon as possible. Jean's sudden change makes him very disturbed. The professor is dead, and he can't let the woman he loves die here. She's called Kyle Isabella, and she's a very powerful golden saint with a very mysterious origin. Logan swallowed. Even though he was fearless, his body couldn't help but tremble faintly. This name is in the future. For many people, it is more terrifying than hearing the of death. Seeing everyone's puzzled eyes, he added, "She is a real gold saint. That young man is just a newly awakened bronze saint. After that is silver, and after that is the strongest gold." These words shocked everyone instantly. They have personally experienced the power that Alfred showed just now. So it is just a newly awakened bronze, that golden saint. Looking at the girl who kept approaching, there was a huge wave in my heart. And when Athena showed a flash of suspicious images in Athens, the 12 golden saints wearing golden holy clothes were all existences who had the ability to smash stars and fight the gods. Does this girl named Kal also have that kind of power? Everyone couldn't help feeling guilty, especially Magneto, who was called a blasphemer by Alfred just after he came out on the stage. The imprint and breath of the gods. Then Alfred was furious. Then this girl, Chapter 30. 3 Trial Magneto. 6 out of 6. Magneto finally regretted it, because his arrogance made him miscalculate his opponent. He always thought that there was just a strong man who was more powerful than him, but he never thought that the could be called God, because of that incredible power. The power of he is far beyond his imagination. Just a selected bronze saint who has just awakened already has power that he cannot resist. So how strong is Athena herself? Even if he is deeply injured, is definitely not someone like him who can calculate. Now because of him, Charles died, and even himself fell into a desperate situation. Magneto is having a storm of thinking about how to solve his own predicament. Root had doubts. Logan, how do you know? Everyone in the world knows that Athena is on the battlefield of the gods. She led the army of saints to fight against the gods by herself. She was deeply injured and fell into a deep sleep until she woke up now. Pick a new saint. The only saints selected are the 2 children from Athens and this Alfred. Why did a gold-level saint suddenly appear out of nowhere, and Logan called out the opponent's name accurately? This has to make people wonder. Logan shook his head helplessly. We will talk about this matter later, but for now, you just need to know that she is an existence comparable to a god, and she has the strength to easily destroy a planet. So, please, don't do irrational things, especially you, Scott. I will not avenge you if you want to die. The last sentence also specifically pointed to Scott. Logan from the future understands the character of this old rival. Asshole, if you die first. Being taught by Logan made Scott retort angrily. Logan shrugged. Based on my self-healing ability, you must die before me? Shit. Scott was so angry that he couldn't speak. The damned Logan was still the same as before, still so annoying. The conversation here has actually been heard by Alfred and Jean, who are 10,000 meters away. When Alfred heard the Golden Saint, he was shocked. He turned his head and looked at Kyle, who had already walked in front of him, hesitated for a moment, felt the vast and huge small universe, and lowered his head. Master Kyle. Phoenix? It's really nostalgic. A particularly powerful constellation. Although it's only bronze, it's not inferior to any gold, Kyle said coldly. Facing a beautiful big sister like Kyle, Alfred behaved calmly and maintained a respectful attitude. Alfred will definitely not disappoint the Phoenix, Lord Kyle. Alfred didn't have any emotions in his heart at this moment, only fire in his heart. For the enthusiasm for powerful power, his past experience has shaped him to have an obsession, that is, the desire for power. He longs for more powerful power to control his own destiny. He needs power to kill those evil with his own hands. Even if he now has the power of the 6th sense, it is not enough. His new target has been placed on Kyle. That kind of vastness made him almost lose the will to fight. The small universe that easily could stop and obliterate his strongest profound meaning. The Phoenix Wing Tianxiang collided with the opponent and produced violent energy fluctuations. It was what he longed for. Moreover, in his heart, there is a secret that he will not tell anyone. That is Athena, the goddess who saved him from when he was most desperate, that beautiful figure in the Pure Land paradise. He can no longer forget. He knew that with his own identity, it was impossible for him to think about that step, but he wanted to swear to the death to protect the last purity in his heart. He swore, absolutely, never allow anyone to hurt Athena. Even if the opponent is the so-called gods, he must have the power to fight against or even kill the gods. Kyle didn't know what was going on in the mind of this cold-faced young man in front of her. Her calm eyes swept over Chin. At this time, Chin suffered a huge shock because of the death of Professor Charles, causing a gap in her heart. So I took the opportunity to control this dark personality that was originally full of destruction, tyranny, and desire. Facing Kyle's gaze, she faintly felt a trace of fear, which made her seem very quiet. Kyle raised his hand and snapped his fingers lightly, and saw 10,000 meters away. There was a ripple in the space around Magneto and others at the same time. A powerful force acted on everyone's bodies, and the irresistible space energy directly drove they were brought to Kyle in an instant. It was transferred over in the blink of an eye, and Magneto and the others didn't even react immediately. When they saw Alfred, Kyle, and Chin, who had become indifferent, they took a step back involuntarily and became vigilant instinctively. The saber-toothed tiger's eyes were already rolling around. If he could run, he would use his hands and feet to run away immediately. The sense of oppression brought by the boy, Chin, and Kyle almost didn't overwhelm his super senses. His legs and feet were weak, and his body was shaking uncontrollably. Calculating the gods, attempting to control the holy fighters, and committing the crime of desecrating the gods' mansion. I pronounce the sentence with the will of Athena, Eric Lanshier. Expel for 200 years. In these 200 years, I will seal your 6 senses, see you in the sunny world. There is only loneliness to accompany you, and you will walk in as a walking dead. The mighty sacred voice resounded. Chapter 30. For Phoenix mixed with irreversible will, Cal pointed. Boom. A turbulent and majestic momentum was suppressed in an instant, and Magneto's body froze. Instinctively, he wanted to use his own ability to resist. He is Magneto, the leader of mutants, and he is facing a powerful enemy. It is impossible to give up willingly. However, Cal's power is too strong. It is so powerful that Magneto's thinking seems to be completely separated from his body into 2 halves. At this moment, he was horrified to find that the ability he was proud of had no effect at all, not to mention controlling the magnetic field. He couldn't even manipulate a little metal element. Not only that, but the most desperate thing happened. Hearing deprivation. These 4 words made him lose his hearing in an instant, and the world became quiet all at once, and then the indifferent female voice came one after another. Deprivation of taste, deprivation of smell, deprivation of touch, deprivation of sight, deprivation of will. In a short moment, he lost his sense of taste, sense of external touch, light, and his own will. The Magneto King, who once caused headaches for the top governments of all countries, seemed to have become a fool at this moment. Without a will of its own. As Cal said, he has become a walking dead without his own will. He has no emotions, no 5 senses, he just stays in place in a daze. Eric, Mystique saw Magneto's temperament change suddenly, like a puppet. His eyes lost their light, and she couldn't help but exclaimed in worry. Especially when they heard Kyle's words, everyone present was terrified. Not only that, Kyle snapped his fingers lightly. Accompanied by the crisp sound of snapping fingers, there was a click, as if the mirror's surface was broken. White cracks were split in the space around Magneto in an instant, and countless cracks were broken on the ground under his feet. In the countless gaps, one could smell the pungent the sulfur, can vaguely hear the terrifying screams and roars. It seems that the other end of the ground is connected to this fabled horror hell. Magneto was just so dumb. As the space shattered, he fell into the crack, into the endless abyss of hell, without a trace of struggle. Everyone just watched him fall into hell, feeling cold all over his body. As the golden saint in front of me said, closing the 5 senses, closing the consciousness, and being exiled to hell, what kind of experience is that? Obviously, that is life is worse than death, and I believe that everyone would rather die like this than end up like Magneto. Is this the divine punishment that should be suffered for blasphemy? It's terrible. No wonder Logan said never to provoke this woman. With shattered space automatically repairing, everything is back to how it was before. After punishing Magneto, Kyle glanced at Mystique and saber-toothed Tiger and the others. Being a slave to the Tiger, although your crimes are not as good as those 2, you deserve to be punished, then deprive one of your 5 senses. As soon as the voice fell, golden ripples passed by in an instant, like an oracle. Mystique and the others immediately noticed that one of their senses had suddenly disappeared. Mystique lost her sense of smell, saber-toothed Tiger lost her sight, Cyclops lost her sense of hearing, and Storm lost her sense of taste. Only Logan did not participate in this operation, so nothing was lost. The few people who were forcibly deprived of their senses permanently were shocked and angry, but they finally endured it. In front of him, all struggles and emotions seemed meaningless. Magneto is strong enough, but he is as fragile as a newborn baby. He didn't even have the ability to fight back, so he was exiled to hell, and even his own consciousness was blocked. Seeing that Cyclops and Storm were silent, Logan finally breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, although Charles is still dead, the trend of history has finally changed because of him. Everyone else has survived, and the mutant school will not end so badly because of the loss of professors and teachers. At least the mutants still retain a spark. So now, only the piano is left. Under Logan's worried eyes, Cal put his eyes on Sheen and said with great interest, "You seem to have been observing, so can you tell me what you saw, Phoenix? You are an existence that I have never seen before. You are powerful and divine, and you are only allowed to see you in." Sheen suddenly seemed to be a different person. Although the voice was still the sound of Sheen, the temperament became more ancient, vicissitudes, and noble. Between the words, there were a few words spoken, but Logan and the others did not hear them, as if they were automatically blocked by their biological instincts because the name was too mysterious and powerful. But Cal heard the name, Eternal, the most powerful detached creation in this universe from ancient times. As the oldest creature in the universe, the phoenix is not surprising that she knows eternity. What the other party said to see is not her own power, but the divinity that belongs to Athena. Seeing Kyle's uncompromising look, Phoenix hesitated for a while and said, "People have to pay their due price for what they do, and I won't interfere, but if possible, I hope you can show mercy to her. So far, I am very satisfied with this container. As the existence of chaos and immortality, he is also the incarnation of the concept of life and emotion, carrying the emotions of creation and destruction, and he naturally gave birth to his own emotions. He has had countless hosts carrying the power of the phoenix, but Qin is undoubtedly the most satisfactory perfect host so far, so naturally he does not want Kyle to punish Qin. Although he is strong enough, the perfect master is Qin, but Qin has been repelling him, he can't exert his true power, and the dark personality is full of tyranny and desire, controlling his destructive side, but still can't let him face the powerful Kyle. If Kyle wants to punish Qin, even he can't stop it. Kyle was silent, as if thinking. The atmosphere became quiet for a while. Except for the howling wind, only Logan, Cyclops Scott's slightly nervous breathing. At this moment, the two seemed to be waiting for the verdict. Finally, under the tense gazes of Logan, Cyclops, and Storm, Kyle nodded.
Can.
Chapter 35. Toggle the hands of the clock. With these two words falling, the atmosphere on the field instantly became much more relaxed. The hearts of Logan and the others that had been hanging in their throats finally fell back into their stomachs. Feng Huang nodded gratefully and finally fell into a deep sleep on his own initiative. It is Qin's dark personality that is in charge of her body again, but she behaves very well behaved and honest in front of Kyle. Any destruction and desire for destruction are all a dish in front of a more powerful and powerful person. She knew very well that if she dared to blow up her hair, she would probably be hammered to death by the terrible woman in front of her every minute. She is tyrannical, but that doesn't mean she's out of her mind. Tyrannical to the weak, humble to the strong. This is the dark personality. Kyle was quite funny when he saw it, but he didn't say anything, but glanced at Logan and the others. You can go, but I hope you remember that those who offend the gods will be punished by God. Yes, although somewhat reluctant, Mystique and the others still nodded respectfully. After speaking, the saber-toothed tiger was the first to run away, and he didn't even tease his stupid brother. Mystique followed. But Logan, Cyclops, and Storm didn't move because Jean didn't move. Seeing this, Kyle frowned and shook his hand impatiently. Boom. The majestic space power burst out again, and the three of Logan were caught off guard, and the figure disappeared in place in the next second without any reaction. Seeing the group of blasphemers being driven away, Alfred hesitated for a moment, glanced at the almost half-destroyed town, and looked at Kyle. Master Kyle, I want to ask for your help. No matter what, this is his hometown, and the destruction is all because of him. Smiley face. Even though he is being cruel, he still feels a little guilty. Kyle saw Alfred's thoughts and nodded secretly. Alfred's mind has changed rapidly after experiencing family upheavals, betrayal, and death. becoming cold, but his heart remains pure. Everyone she chooses is not only talented, but also has the highest moral character. After admiring secretly, he nodded. Yes, but only this time. As soon as the words fell, her blue eyes glowed with divine golden light. The majestic and vast small universe in the body escaped, making Alfred feel the almost desperate atmosphere again. In Alfred's burning eyes, with Kyle as the center, golden ripples spread in all directions in an instant, driven by the monstrous power covering the entire town. The miracle came again, and time gradually slowed down. Not only that, but under this supreme force, time was actually going backwards, just like turning the hands of a clock representing time. In the next second, under the excited eyes of countless people, a terrifying picture appeared. Rumble the town, which was half destroyed and razed to the ground, is recovering automatically. Flying gravel, broken trees, scrapped cars, tires, parts, etc., are all returning to their original appearance in the original time trajectory. The houses that were washed down and collapsed, everything that was smashed to pieces by the huge impact, all are recovering at a rapid pace. 30 seconds, just a short 30 seconds, the devastated and dilapidated town was restored to its original state. The impact of this miraculous picture on people is exaggerated. Time is the most magical power since ancient times. Time makes people old. The law that everything in the world follows is time. No one can break free from time and control it. Humans once dreamed of controlling time and wanted to use technology to create a so-called time machine. But no matter who it was, they all failed. Because no one can manipulate such power. If anyone can control time, then he must be a god. Master Kyle, Alfred's eyes shone with light, and the fire in his heart became more and more intense. Such power makes people obsessed. Is this the power possessed by the golden Saint Seiya? I must reach the seventh sense. In the inheritance memory, he clearly understands the system of the saint, and also understands that the seventh sense is the basis for becoming a golden saint. But he also had a little curiosity about Kyle. Since Lord Kyle is a golden saint, what constellation is it? Why is it so powerful? He didn't ask this question, because he believed that sooner or later he would know. After completing the time regression and repairing the town with ease, Kyle saw Alfred's funny look, stretched out his fingers and tapped the boy's forehead, and said softly, "Practice hard, boy. Sooner or later you will have such a strength." After finishing speaking, she walked towards the distance of the road. Sheen's eyes flickered, looked at Kyle's back, and looked at Alfred, hesitated for a moment and did not move. Just as Kyle's back disappeared at the end of the road, a voice floated over. "Remember to go back to the sanctuary to practice." Sanctuary. Hearing these two words, the corners of the cold boy's mouth curled up. He looked up at the starry sky, as if seeing Tianqing in another world through the sky. In that heavenly city, there is a goddess that he swore to protect all his life. There was tenderness in his eyes, and after a while, he lowered his head and turned to look at the dark piano standing beside him. The other party's eyes seemed to be seeing prey, which made Alfred very uncomfortable, and his brows tightened. "What do you want to do?" "I want to follow you." "You want to follow me? Why?" Alfred was surprised. "You feel that there is something about you that interests me," Sheen laughed. Chapter 30. 6 in the sky more than 10 kilometers away from the town. In a Blackbird fighter plane, the plane was flying slowly, and the atmosphere inside seemed very quiet. Saber-toothed Tiger, Mystique, Logan, Cyclops, and Storm sat in the rest cabin with their heads bowed, feeling depressed. As one of the earliest X-Men, Beast Hank turned on the assisted autopilot function, walked over, saw that there was no Professor Charles, and suddenly asked with some doubts, "Eric, where are Charles and Jean?" However, there was uneasiness in my heart. This time, as a responder, he may not have participated in this operation, but it is not that he did not fail to notice the short doom-like scene before the town in the fighter plane. A group of people went, but there were 3 people missing, and with the lonely expressions of Cyclops and the others, he vaguely guessed some. Regarding this, he didn't even ask why Logan appeared here for the first time. Everyone didn't answer. Logan looked up at Hank and shook his head. "Charles and Magneto are dead, Sheen." He didn't finish his sentence, but just sighed. These words made Hank feel like being struck by lightning, and his face suddenly changed, as if he had heard it wrong. His face was full of disbelief, and his voice raised a bit. "Charles, dead?" "Yes, Hank, Charles is dead." "Impossible. With you guys here, who can kill Charles and Eric and Sheen? What happened to Sheen?" Hank's voice caused Cyclops, who was already depressed, to explode completely. He stood up abruptly, grabbed Hank's collar with both hands and roared. "You heard right, Hank. Magneto and Charles are dead. Even Jean. I lost everything, believe it or not. Nobody wants to wish for that, but it just happened. From the beginning full of anger to the deep voice at the end. He slumped on the seat weakly. 2 lines of tears gradually slipped down from under his glasses. For the X-Men, tonight was like a nightmare. Charles's death undoubtedly dealt a huge blow to them, especially for Cyclops. When Cyclops was young, he awakened his ability and was sent to Xavier Youth School. He met Professor Charles, among whom he experienced various events. His brother died. When he was helpless, it was Charles who showed up with the gentlest attitude and care, which helped him gradually walk out of the haze in his heart. Let him accept his identity as a mutant, and Charles is not only a teacher, an elder, but also a father in his heart. Just such a person died in front of him. Even the body was gone, and Jean, his lover, seemed to be a different person, looking at him not only like a stranger, but also like an enemy. The double blow made him physically and mentally exhausted. Hank just stood there in a daze. His lips moved. His expression became gloomy. The atmosphere fell into silence again. Maybe the only one who was relaxed in the room was the saber-toothed tiger. From the beginning to the end, the only thing he really cared about was his stupid brother. He said that he had experienced World War II and had seen too many deaths, so he was already numb. Eric is just his boss. The boss is dead. Maybe he still has a chance to replace Magneto to control the Brotherhood of Mutants. So there is still a hint of joy in my heart. Logan, at this time. Mystique raised her head to look at Logan and wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Hank, who woke up. The latter stared at Mystique and saber-toothed tiger angrily, gritted his teeth and squeezed out a sentence. If you didn't use school children to threaten Charles and do such whimsical things, Charles wouldn't have died. It's all because of you. Caused by it, I, now, really want to tear you apart. The teeth rattled vigorously, and the fur on the body of the angry beast had blown up, and the ferocious aura slowly spread. Hearing this, Cyclops also raised his head abruptly. The red light in his glasses flickered, as if he was about to launch an energy beam at any time. The same goes for Storm. Sensing the danger, the saber-toothed tiger suddenly broke away from the fantasy, roared, its sharp nails slowly stretched, and its face was full of vigilance. In an instant, the atmosphere became tense. Fortunately, at this critical moment, the most sensible Storm and Logan quickly stood up and stood between the two sides. Storm supported Hank with both hands, and Logan grabbed Scott by the collar and yelled face to face. Scott, we are devastated by the death of Charles and the loss of Jean, and no one wants that. Magneto, Riven, and the others are indeed responsible, but Magneto is dead, so what's the point of taking your anger out on them? Kill them, and the Mutant Brotherhood and us will surely start a war. Cyclops, who was dazzled by anger, didn't care at all and pushed Logan away. War is war. I'm tired of these bastards. Every day they talk about fighting for the rise of mutants, but every effort they make one thing is just destroying the relationship between us and humans, and the professor is still trying to mediate it. If you want me to say, you should kill this bunch of garbage. Where is Jean? What about Jean? Logan called out Jean directly, causing Scott to misfire in an instant. Cyclops seemed to have been poured cold water, and his anger dissipated a lot, and he also regained some sanity. Seeing this, Qin chased after Logan. And what about the students in the school? Once we go to war with the Mutant Brotherhood, there will be countless casualties. If we die, who will take care of the students? Didn't Charles always hope that those students would live well? Do you know, if according to history, we all die in the near future, what will happen to those students? It's shocking. All the children were captured by some and thrown on the test bed. Each of them died in despair in the brutal experiment. Do you want to see such a picture, kid? As soon as these words came out, everyone's surprised eyes were immediately aroused. The atmosphere suddenly became a little uncomfortable. Scott frowned and looked at Logan, who had been confrontational before him, and suddenly found that he seemed to be a different person. What are you talking about? Chapter 37. The Wolverine through history. A minute later, everyone was sitting in the aircraft rest cabin, and Logan was sitting smoking a cigarette, and a wisp of smoke curled up. He looked at the floating smoke and fell into memories, as if he saw the tragic and hopeless world 20 years later. He began to tell. Cyclops, who had lost his hearing, stared at Logan's mouth, but fortunately he understood lip language. I come from 20 years later. Maybe you don't believe it. 20 years later, the Xavier Teenage Mutant Academy has become ruins, and the Brotherhood mutants have only a few people left because of hunting down, just like the sewer hiding around like a mouse. As I said before, 20 years later, the school has become history, and all the students were taken away by a few people who don't know what kind of force, and they are doing cruel experiments. Only me and Kaidi survived hiding and hiding. Hearing what Logan said, everyone's eyes widened immediately, and the saber-toothed tiger sat up straight with a face full of indifference, with an expression like "You're crazy, brother." "Walter? Logan, are you kidding me?" Storm's face was full of disbelief. "The same goes for everyone else." Logan shook his head helplessly. "But that's the truth. It was a truly hopeless world, the end of mutants, the death of mutants' high-end combat power, resulting in no threat to the existence of colleges and fraternities, like a piece of meat on a display board, being targeted by a group of greedy hounds, eventually causing a tragedy happened. They wantonly captured mutants, sat around and experimented, trying to create a serum that would allow humans to evolve. In fact, they did succeed. After sacrificing countless mutants, they created the so-called super soldier serum. After injecting the serum, humans will evolve to acquire corresponding abilities, then formed a lot of legions of superpowers, and then a terrifying world war of superpowers started, and the world was shattered in that battle. The greater the power, the more ambitious people are born. They try to subvert the rule of the world, and even wants to get involved in becoming a god. Finally, Sanctuary finally made a choice. They sent a golden saint who killed all the legions of superpowers and those ambitious people in an instant with unbelievable power. This also made me and Kaiti isn't hiding here. Smiley face. This period of history is a tragic past that Logan does not want to recall. For him, that kind of powerlessness and despair made him want to die with those several times, although he knew that there was a high probability that he would be arrested and become a test bench. A member of Fortunately, because of Katie's existence, he still restrained himself and waited until Sanctuary made his move. Logan's deep, painful voice made the people present enter into it, and saw that period of hopeless history in a trance. Sanctuary? Gold Saint Seiya? Mystique suppressed the shock in her heart and asked, "If that's the case, those people wantonly arrested mutants. Why didn't Sanctuary act sooner? Didn't the goddess Athena say that saints are meant to protect the world?"
Yes.
The others also nodded. Logan said bitterly, "That's why I travel back to this day. It's because of God's punishment for mutants." Punishment? Everyone was shocked. Yes, according to history, you should have succeeded today. The newly awakened Saint Fighter and the already blackened Sheen fought and destroyed the entire town, causing everyone in the town to be affected and die, including you, caused the death of innocent people, caused the child to collapse, and the blackened Sheen took the opportunity to control the mind. And the blackened Sheen was persuaded by Magneto to use the child's powerful power to forcibly kill a large number of high-level officials from various countries who did not like mutants. Because of the child's powerful power and the gods behind him, all countries surrendered. Already, changing the status of mutants, Magneto has indeed succeeded in a sense. But this also planted the seeds of future mutant tragedies. Magneto is too arrogant and domineering. Anyone who opposes mutants will be brutally killed, which has long made human beings dissatisfied. Not only that, but because of controlling a Saint Fighter, he finally angered the goddess Athena. Logan sighed. Although it is said that Magneto released the child's control after the incident, he was calculating the gods, and finally suffered a backlash. The angry Athena instantly obliterated Magneto and Sheen. After that, you will know. Logan leaned on the back, took a puff of cigarette, and slowly exhaled. Confiding was undoubtedly the most decompressive way, and it also made him relax a lot from the pressure he had accumulated. And when the others heard this, they were so shocked that they were almost speechless. They were still digesting this appalling history, and Logan was not in a hurry, just quietly waiting for them to digest it. I don't know how long it has passed, but the saber-toothed tiger said, "Logan, what about me?" He still cared more about himself. Logically speaking, with his super self-healing ability, he should have survived that battle anyway. However, Logan glanced at his elder brother who was always falling in love with him, and ruthlessly broke his fantasy. "You are dead. Your self-healing ability has no effect at all, and you were crushed into powder in the aftermath of the war." The saber-toothed tiger still shut up, but he still made a decision in his heart, that is, he must never provoke the holy fighters in the future, and by the way, the woman named Sheen must not be provoked either. Not to mention her strength after being blackened, she dared to plot against the gods, which is also bold. Then how did you travel back? Mystique finally digested Logan's narrative, grasped the point, and asked. Others also looked at Logan. Logan took the cigarette out of his mouth and flicked the ash. "It's Katie. She developed a new ability after she grew up, which can allow someone's consciousness to travel back in time and change history. When we were avoiding the pursuit, many times it was because of her ability that we escaped the inevitable death situation. It's just that the time can't be too long, because human consciousness can't bear the span of too long. Otherwise, the consciousness and nervous system will collapse. And my will and self-healing ability just meet this point. So the adventure went directly to today's 20 years ago. Chapter 38. The most powerful gold saint. So the mutants were hunted down, and Sanctuary didn't take any action. It just offended the gods. Eric and Charles were determined to work hard for the mutants, but the gods gave the most serious punishment. It's just that the price is too heavy. Mystique said something silently, and there was another sentence she didn't say, but everyone understood it in their hearts. That is how merciful Athena is. She is still a god, and the ruthlessness and indifference of the gods are fully revealed at this moment. Can't help it, everyone is scared. If it really follows the historical trajectory, then... After a long silence, Storm changed the subject. I didn't expect Katie to have such abilities. It's really unexpected. The others also nodded. Needless to say, this is nothing short of a miracle. It would not be an exaggeration to say that God gave the mutants a chance. If it wasn't for Logan who happened to take Katie away, if it wasn't for Katie and Logan's successful escape under various pursuits, if it wasn't for Katie who happened to have the ability to time travel, and Logan just happened to meet the ability to travel through 20 years and bear the cost, then there will be no today, and there will be no chance to change history. So, Logan did change history in a sense. Mystique nodded. She also breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. The biggest reason for her to follow Magneto was to change the embarrassing situation of the mutants, but she didn't expect that because of Eric's idea before, she angered God and led to the tragedy of the mutants. There is still a chance for redemption. It's a pity that I'm still late, and Charles is still dead. Logan regretted. No one wants to do this. The professor also hopes that the children will get better and better. We will inherit the professor's legacy and protect those children from growing up smoothly. Storm comforted. Logan nodded silently. At this time, Hank, who had calmed down, suddenly said, according to Logan, it stands to reason that the battle between the Saint Fighter and Sheen has caused an irreversible situation, and more than half of the town has been destroyed. Even if Logan, it doesn't help the matter now. The core key point is to save everyone in the town and control the Black and Sheen. This point is very important. When the others heard that it was true, their expressions immediately became serious. In this historical trajectory, Logan came late after all. In a battle of that level, Logan could not change history at all. So what happened? To change history? Logan frowned. It's Kyle Isabella. According to the historical trajectory, although I didn't participate in this big event, I know very well that she shouldn't appear at this point in time. If she appeared in that history, then such a tragedy would not have happened. This is something that Logan has been unable to figure out. After he came to the town, why did that powerful golden saint suddenly appear? There is no reason or reason at all. Several other people were also puzzled. Who is this Kyle Isabella? Mystique asked. Several other people are also very curious. Logan thought for a while and said simply, you are also very clear that the goddess Athena selected a holy warrior army among the Canadians. The holy warriors are divided into bronze, silver, and gold. In the future, this holy warrior army has grown stronger. In the end, each of their bronze saints has the ability to destroy planets with ease, not to mention the golden saints. According to legend, each of the 12 golden saints has the power to destroy galaxies, almost like gods. Destroy planets? Destroy the galaxy? This description made everyone almost unable to breathe. They couldn't even imagine how powerful it was. Such power was not something that human beings should be able to imagine. The 12 golden saints heard that the 12 palaces of the Zodiac were established in the universe. These 12 golden saints sit in town to maintain order. This short sentence seems to let everyone see that in the vast universe and starry sky in the future, there are magnificent palaces standing tall and tall. 12 golden saints who look like gods wear golden holy clothes and guard the palaces. People yearn for shock. How great is that? Although the saber-toothed tiger is blind, there is still a trace of admiration flashing in the gray pupils. This is the demeanor that the strong should have. Gold Saint Seiya, the saber-toothed tiger, suddenly had an idea in his heart. What to control the mutant brotherhood? It is simply too petty. The sanctuary, it has already entered the universe, and has become a god's residence guarding one side in the vast starry sky. Logan continued talking, and his tone became heavy. But this Kyle Isabella is the 14th of the 12 gold saints, and the most mysterious golden saint. Saint Seiya. Wait a minute, isn't it 12 gold saints? Adding one is also 13? Why did it suddenly become 14? Storm noticed the blind spot and interrupted hastily. The others also widened their eyes. What the is this talking about? Logan took it for granted instead. Isn't it normal to have 13 golden saints? It is said that Gemini among the 12 constellations is two twins, too. Speaking of the twins, he especially emphasized his tone. This made everyone suddenly realize. Makes sense, Logan said angrily. Don't interrupt me, okay? I'm going to be interrupted by you all. Everyone quickly apologized and motioned for Logan to continue, and Logan nodded in satisfaction. It has to be said that it feels really good to teach people. No wonder the professor likes to teach students when there is nothing to do. It turns out that it is because of this reason. I don't know what zodiac sign Kyle Isabella is, but she seems to have an unusual relationship with the goddess Athena, and according to legend, she is not only the most mysterious of the golden saints, but also the strongest. According to history, she once personally slaughtered another terrifying existence from another dimension that attempted to invade this universe, and even destroyed that dimension directly with one blow. Some people speculate that she may be a golden saint of a certain constellation in the previous generation, or even an earlier generation. She once followed the goddess Athena to participate in the Battle of the Gods, but she survived for some reason. She may be the old monster among the old monsters. Monster. At the end of speaking, Logan lowered his voice a lot, looked around and arranged for the words to be sensed by an old monster, who suddenly appeared and killed him. After everyone was popularized, their hearts were overwhelmed. I have to say that it is too exciting to spy on the truth of a certain period of history of the gods. However, everyone finally believed Logan Traveling's ridiculous words. After digesting them, Storm glanced at everyone and said, "No matter what, since history has changed, we can't start wars wantonly. We need to avoid future tragedies. First of all, we have to find the blackened chain." Chapter 30. Ninth practice. The sudden outbreak of war in the small town immediately attracted attention. This time, all countries have paid attention to matters related to gods, and even specially set up relevant departments, just to deal with related matters. During the battle in the small town, the military satellites of the major powers had already set their sights on the small town, and they also witnessed everything that happened in the small town with their own eyes. But the result was beyond everyone's expectation. Unexpectedly, Magneto, Professor X, and mutants actually became the protagonists. From the picture, it is easy to judge the reason, but the high-level officials of various countries did not expect that Magneto and Professor X would want to get their hands on the newly awakened Saint Seiya. Not to mention the twists and turns of the situation afterwards. The mutant leader Magneto and Professor X died on the spot. What's more, the Holy Warrior and one of the female mutants actually fought a tie, causing half of the town to be hit and turned into ruins in an instant. Just when they thought that the people in the town would not be spared, a more powerful saint appeared. He actually controlled the power of time and restored the collapsed town to its original appearance. That kind of power is simply terrifying. But what's more, it's fiery. It would be great if they could also control such power, but unfortunately, this is simply impossible. The new Saint Seiya, and the appearance of the suspected golden Saint Seiya behind him, although surprising, is limited to this. But the death of Magneto and Professor X had a very huge impact. After World War II, the group of mutants gradually began to emerge. Afterwards, Magneto once showed the ability to scare the American authorities. Why mutants are rejected by the mainstream of mankind, except that the newly awakened mutants' abilities will go out of control and cause accidents, but it is more fueled by the governments of some countries such as the United States. It is to make humans and mutants confront each other, so that they will not be condemned for certain things to mutants. It's just a pity that they have a good idea, but because of Magneto and Professor X, they dare not do it for a long time. After all, no matter who they offend, they may cause terrible damage to the government in an instant. Magneto has a precedent. In the 1990s, he held up a football field to smash the president and a group of people, and all the pictures were saved in the secret files of the White House. And Professor X's abilities are even more against the sky, with powerful psychic abilities, and it is said that he also has a psychic amplification machine that can amplify his abilities. If he has some ideas, he can modify them instantly and control human consciousness. In order to prevent this aspect, various countries have built a lot of equipment to isolate the spiritual power of the mind. But if Professor X is determined to target someone, these devices are not all that useful. Because of fear of these two, the government can only fight public opinion wars, and dare not directly change the policy and directly target the mutant group. It has continued until now. Unexpectedly, Magneto and Professor X did stupid things by themselves to provoke the newly awakened Saints and died tragically. The death of two powerful mutants who have been fearful for a long time. The top leaders of some government agencies such as the United States immediately moved their minds, especially the top leaders of many agencies that have been secretly arresting mutants for experiments, directly made a request to the government to revise the policy against mutants. There is also a series of data that looks decent. It is said that mutants will endanger the human population in the future, that mutants are cancerous tumors, and so on. But anyone with a discerning eye knows what the main purpose is. That is to attempt to decipher the genes of mutants through experiments and create genetic serum that allows people to obtain superpowers. Saint fighters are too powerful. Smiley face. Even the newly awakened Saint fighters cannot be resisted by human technological weapons. In the face of real power, all conspiracies and tricks are useless. Those ambitious forces who have been lurking have thought of many conspiracies. Even aiming at Athena's benevolence and fraternity, it also specializes in studying whether it is possible to coerce saints to give up struggling and resisting by threatening the safety of ordinary innocent people or other things. But unfortunately, after calculation, the success rate is appallingly low. Not even a 1 in 10,000 chance. So I had no choice but to give up, and now that I had the opportunity, of course I would take the next best thing. The superpowers for mutants might allow them to go on another path. Mutants have various abilities, not to mention abilities, but there are also many powerful abilities. Large-scale manufacturing will definitely obtain powerful capabilities, and the issue of probability is not worth mentioning to the government and those forces. There is not much in this world, except that there are enough experimental subjects. If 10,000 people could die, and one person could obtain extremely powerful superpowers, they wouldn't hesitate at all. Regardless of the age, human life has never been worth mentioning to those in power and careerists. Next, a huge vortex of conspiracy began to gradually spread towards the group of mutants. A war without gunpowder is about to start. Time passed so slowly. 2 months passed by in a flash. Sanctuary. In the vast Sky City, Bart and Tina are practicing. In the center of a concave lake, there are many tall and small natural stone pillars. The two are standing on the 2 stone pillars. Their eyes are shining brightly. Boom, with a roar, the stone pillar under her feet instantly shattered and collapsed. In the sky full of rubble and dust, Tina's eyes were colored with red light, and she rushed towards Bart. Turbulent Xiaoyu, the universe burst out with incomparable energy. In the blink of an eye, she was in front of Bart, and she clenched her fist and punched Bart hard in the chest. But Bart was not to be outdone. He had always thought of himself as a macho, and he admired toughness. Facing Tina's attack, he chose the hard steel from the front and punched him first. The powerful force drove the impact, blasting the air layer by layer. Just when the 2 fists were about to collide, Tina's clenched fist suddenly relaxed and brushed against Bart's fist. A few fingers nimbly touched the back of Bart's fist, and her body rolled upside down several times in the air. Rushed behind Bart. Bart didn't expect to turn around suddenly, but at this moment, Tina's feet were bent in midair, and she used her mental power to create a substantial barrier under her feet. Bang! She stepped on it hard, and the figure immediately tore through the air, rushed towards Bart with an extremely ferocious aura, and punched heavily. Chapter 40. The Battle of the Sanctuary Rumble. The air wave exploded, and Bart's figure slanted towards the bottom of the lake like a meteorite, breaking dozens of rock pillars along the way. Gravel and dust and smoke splashed down towards the bottom. But Bart fell directly to the bottom of the lake with a plop, splashing water all over the sky. The calm surface of the lake was broken, ripples spread in circles, and the waves rolled back and repelled. Seeing Bart being thrown into the bottom of the lake, Tina sensed Bart's position with her powerful 6 senses. With a coquettish cry, she stretched out her index finger in midair, and a scarlet halo exploded on her fingertips. Ong! The majestic small universe erupted, and in the next second, tiny scarlet light beams poured down on the bottom of the lake like a torrential rain. Boom! 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 The dense scarlet light beams hit the lake surface and continuously exploded water columns, making it impossible to see the bottom of the lake at all. The super powerful blows covered the sky and the sun, making it impossible for Bart to dodge, but his character was too lazy to dodge at all. Roar! Standing under the bottom of the lake, with a roar, dense water bubbles spewed out of his mouth, and the green light colored his pupils. He crossed his hands and surrounded him, and the powerful small universe spewed out, and he punched out within a second. One of the strongest tactics of Taurus, a giant horn. All of a sudden, several huge horn phantoms composed of pure energy appeared in front of him, seemingly huge but breaking through the lake at a fast speed. The dense scarlet beams that shot out along the way were smashed into pieces by these giant horns. Unstoppable, it blasted towards Tina, who was in midair. The speed of the giant horn was astonishingly fast, approaching extremely, and the huge aura was pressing on Tina, making her unable to move. Seeing that Tina couldn't dodge in time, she was directly hit by the giant horn. Rumble. In an instant, a huge explosion occurred in the air, ripples of emerald green energy spread in all directions, and a super shock wave swept across. All the surrounding rock pillars within tens of thousands of meters were broken by the huge impact, and the lake was formed into a huge semicircle due to continuous pressure. The waves rolled towards the edge. Bart stepped on both feet, and the water at the bottom of the lake was shaken out of a vacuum circle by a powerful force, and his figure rushed out like a cannonball, flying straight into the air. Ignoring the rolling shock waves, he raised his hand with a boundless giant leap punched at the center of the ripple. In an instant, a pure white fist pierced through the turbulent energy ripples and directly collided with Bart's fist. One big and one small, the two fists smashed together like a planet hitting the earth. Boom. In an instant, the collision of the two fists caused a huge impact that was far greater than before and exploded again. Even the centers of the two fists were too powerful to explode dense electric sparks out of thin air. Between the flashes of lightning, the world seemed to dim down. The entire lake began to emit huge shocks, and the surrounding rock walls collapsed wantonly. The trees and flowers were bent down by the huge wind. I don't know how long this huge impact lasted, and it finally stopped. Bart and Tina, who were stalemate in midair, used their strength to roll backwards a few times and finally landed on the churning lake. If you look carefully, you can see that the two people's feet are not in direct contact with the lake surface, but there is a small distance of a few centimeters, and they are stepping on a floating drop of water. It is precisely because of this that even if the lake water is violently tumbling due to the impact, it can still stand firm. The Saints of the Sixth Sense have many abilities, including manipulating elements, and water is also a kind of element, so don't borrow water elements too easily. After meeting for tens of meters, Bart and Tina were panting slightly, and the clothes they were wearing were slightly damaged. It was obvious that the two brothers and sisters were almost evenly divided in this fierce battle. Ha, it's a tie again. After a short rest, the two calmed down the boiling blood in their bodies. Bart was the first to break the calm, touching his head with one hand and smiling honestly. Really, Bart, your fighting style is really wild, and you almost got hit by your attack. Tina rolled her pretty eyes and said in disgust. After all, as a girl, I feel helpless for Bart's open and close fighting style, mainly because she is too clumsy. No matter what moves she uses, she needs hard steel, and Bart's fighting style seems wild, but in fact it is use momentum to beat people and beat the rhythm. If you are not careful, you may be suppressed by the momentum, forcefully fall into Bart's rhythm, and start a confrontation with him. Although Tina has the same sixth sense, her strength is not far behind Bart's, but fortunately she has a different emphasis. Her speed is slightly faster than Bart's, but her strength is somewhat inferior. Especially Bart's Taurus tactics are amazingly powerful. Faced with Tina's disgust, Bart smiled honestly, turned his head to look at the cliff on the peak of the mountain in the distance, waved his hand and shouted, "Alfred, do you want us to fight too?" On the cliff tens of thousands of meters away, Alfred, wearing a white sports short-sleeved t-shirt, sat cross-legged, listening to Bart's words and shaking his head. "You fought with Tina, come back after you rest." Ever since he came to Sanctuary, he has known Bart and Tina brothers and sisters. After the exchanges between the two sides, they have more or less known the basics. In addition, they are all fighters selected by the goddess Athena, so they naturally have belonging and affection, so it didn't take long. Became good friends, also familiar with each other's character. Ever since his family members died and he was betrayed by fellow roommates, Alfred has experienced life and death, and his personality has become much colder. He is cold on the surface, but his heart is hot, and he treats his companions very well. The three of them are practicing in the sanctuary, and they will have a friendly match from time to time to fight and learn from each other to improve. This is already the 5th time they have come to Sanctuary to learn from each other. The three have victories against each other, but it is Alfred who is more likely to win. The Phoenix tactics have a special targeting spirit, and the focus is very comprehensive. The speed is not inferior to Tina, and the strength is not inferior to Bart. In addition, the body size is also more important. After all, Bart and Tina are at a certain age, and their small arms and legs beat their long hands and long legs, which is somewhat disadvantaged. Fortunately, the life levels of Bart and Tina have evolved. With sufficient nutrition, the two will enter a period of rapid growth. Maybe within a year or two, their height and arm span will not be inferior to those of adults. Chapter 41. The crisis arrives. Boom. While chatting, Tina and Bart lightly tapped their right feet, and the water droplets under their feet exploded. The two of them turned into two beams of light that tore through the air, broke through the distance of 10,000 meters in the blink of an eye, and came to Alfred. It fell from midair like a feather. Bart did it straight down, while Tina stretched her waist and stretched her muscles. Well, do you see anything? The details of the battle are slightly flawed. Tina played very well at the beginning and gained the upper hand a little bit, but later on she was careless, and you took her back. Tina was already a bit difficult to fight afterward. Alfred began to retaliate. The battle between the two of them started. This is the habit left by the three of them since they sparred. It is precisely because of this habit that we will continue to improve. Tina nodded. Indeed, Bart is more sensitive to combat than I am, and my tactics are different. Some immature. With her sixth sense, many of her tactics cannot be fully used, or she has too little time to practice, and the precondition is to use the light speed fist finger to attack the central nervous system of the enemy's brain. Even a saint with the seventh sense you have to be restrained, and the person who has been hit by this trick will directly fall into a paralyzed state. The small universe can't burn and can't act, and there is a huge fear in his heart like a poisonous sting, so the power of thought fades away. But with only the sixth sense, she couldn't punch the speed of light punch at all. In fact, the speed of sound punch could also be used, but it was not very powerful. However, before this move came out, Bart robbed the rhythm. Knowing everything, Bart would not give her a chance to use this trick. There is also a Scarlet Whirlwind move, which uses waving arms to cause natural disasters such as wind, rain, thunder, and lightning. It is not a small universe strategy, but just physical strength. The biggest feature of this move is that the attack range is extremely large, and it can cover hundreds of thousands of square kilometers in an instant. Clean up everything around you in an instant. It's a pity that it doesn't have much effect on holy fighters of the same level, and Ching soldiers are almost the same. Or it can be used as a cover move in battle. To put it bluntly, the time of practice is too short, the small universe is not strong enough, and the cultivation of combat methods is not proficient. Bart doesn't have that many things. The prerequisites for a giant role are not big, and he is especially suitable for him. Originally, his physical talent is better than Tina. When he grows up, he is also a standard strong man. Maybe it is the traditional physical talent of a Taurus, and he has an advantage in fighting. Just better than Tina. But when they reach adulthood, they all reach the seventh sense, so it is uncertain who will win or lose in a fight. After all, just like the Scorpio constellation, the ability to pierce the surface is quite terrifying, especially the destructive power of the crimson piercing explosion. Although Tina may look like a girl, her dedication to victory is not weak at all. She is holding her breath. Even if it is Bart, she does not want to lose. She bears the title of one of the 12 golden saints, and she wants to become the strongest one. In the degree of cultivation effort, it is even better than Bart. Of course, it is still inferior to Alfred. This practitioner is almost masochistic. Apart from practicing, fighting is just practicing and fighting, as if there are only these two in his life. That belief and persistence seem to carry through his life. Therefore, among the three of them, Alfred is the strongest, and now he is one step away from the late stage of sixth sense, while Bart and Tina have just reached the middle stage. The three communicated for a while, and when Bart's physical fitness was almost recovered, when he planned to fight Alfred, a voice interrupted the three of them. Alfred, Bart, Tina, smiley face. The ethereal female voice caused the three of them to raise their heads abruptly. Under the crown, come to the temple. I have something to tell you. Yes, the three looked at each other, and immediately turned into three beams of light soaring towards the temple in the sky. I have to say that Tianqing is vast, and it took a lot of time to reach the temple at the speed of the three of them. The three of them landed at the gate of the temple. The gate of the tall and magnificent temple was already open. Following the staircase, the three of them walked towards the inside. The interior of the temple is very huge. In the distance, there are 12 stone pillars Takamatsu supporting the temple. On the stone pillars, there are pictures of saints and gods from all ages, and the history of fighting against evil gods. It seems that you can travel through time at a glance. Close by, The magnificent temple has many windows on the edge of the wall, and the sunlight outside shines, makes the interior very bright. There was a long red carpet on the clear and transparent floor, and the three walked along the red carpet to the deepest place in front of the statue of Athena. At this time, in front of the statue, Athena had been waiting for the three of them. At a distance of about 5 meters, the three of them immediately knelt down on one knee, lowered their heads and said in a respectful voice, "Your Majesty Athena," still dressed in light white gauze, wearing a wreath of flowers and laurels, and holding a victory scepter, turned around, looked at the three of them, and said softly, "Get up." "Yes, Your Majesty." The three of them stood up, and Alfred looked at Athena's beautiful face, and the love that was suppressed in his heart was about to erupt like a volcano, but Alfred's rationality made him suppress this feeling. He knew very well that Athena was the high god's residence, which he would never be able to touch, and there was only one thing he could do, which was to protect it with his own life. Looking at the exuberant small universe of the three of them, Kyle's eyes flashed with satisfaction. In a short period of time, the three of them have made great progress. In a few years, they are bound to break through to the seventh sense. At this time, she can afford to wait. The slanted light shone on her body, making her even more stalwart and beautiful. Under the light and shadow, her beautiful eyes reflected the faces of the three of them, and Kyle's red lips parted slightly. "Alfred, Bart, Tina, I feel a crisis is spreading to the world. The source of this crisis seems to come from an evil existence, and his greedy eyes are watching those saint fighters who have not yet awakened." As soon as these words came out, the hearts of the three of them immediately trembled. Alfred frowned, and a cool look flashed across his gradually handsome face, and he immediately said, "Your Majesty, I request to set off immediately. We must not let those evil touches those who are not yet awakened." Bart and Tina also agreed. Kyle nodded. "You are responsible for this matter. It is related to the future of Sanctuary. In addition, you must be careful. I feel that this evil is very powerful, so when you act, someone will help you." "Yes, Your Majesty." Chapter 42. Athena's Expectation Boom. Athena lifted the golden victory scepter and lightly tapped the ground to make a crisp sound. In the next second, a golden magic circle containing a mysterious pattern appeared on the ground under her feet. In the astonished eyes of the three people, they saw the composition of this mysterious pattern. The golden development flows slowly. 3 metal boxes emerged from it. There are 2 golden boxes and 1 bronze box. The 4 sides of the boxes are engraved with patterns belonging to different constellations. The decibels are Scorpio, Taurus, and Phoenix. Plop, plop, plop. The eyes of the three were fixed on the metal box. The eyes were shining brightly, the heart beat, and the sound seemed to resonate with the metal box. All three of them felt that the box seemed to be calling to them. "Your Majesty, this is..." Alfred's expression became agitated. He had already thought of what it was. "This is your saint cloth." Sure enough, Athena gave the answer the three wanted. The emotions of the three of them changed, and their expressions were full of excitement. "Holy cloth, this is the armor that only saints can have, and it is also the symbol of saints. Only when you wear saint cloths can you be called a saint. The saints of all ages wore them to fight against the mighty gods." The tragic battle made the three of them yearn for it. In a trance, it seemed as if they saw the sound of the Scorpio, Taurus, etc. from the 3 boxes. The hysterical, soul-piercing cry of the Phoenix saints. That unyielding, brave breath is engraved in it. Holy cloths are soul-communicating partners of saints. They have their own souls. Don't let them down. Don't let yourself down. They grow up with you. I hope to see you wear them and wave the fist of justice against the powerful evil. Athena spoke slowly. Her voice was soft, but it contained expectations for the future of the three of them. "We will not disappoint you, Your Majesty." The three of them were infected by the emotion of anticipation, and their blood boiled immediately, with determination all over their faces. A minute later, I saw 3 golden and scarlet beams rushing towards Su from the Sky City. On the roof of the temple, Kyle looked up at the 3 Alfreds who disappeared through the dimensional crack, and the corner of his mouth curled up slightly, and he murmured, "Let me see how you will perform in the face of such a trial." After finishing speaking, he immediately pondered. Using alchemy, she has mastered the way to create the holy clothes, but in contrast, although the core material she found after the burning of stars is good, it is still not enough. The saint cloth she handed to the 3 of them was already 7 or 8% of the original saint cloth, but she was not satisfied. "Ulu metal? Looks like I need to go to Asgard," Kyle whispered and slowly closed his eyes. In space in the eastern hemisphere of the Earth, 3 bright golden and red meteors broke through the atmosphere and fell towards the ground. Space station and military in space, the satellite captured this, which immediately attracted the attention of various countries. However, when I saw the figures in the 3 shooting stars through the captured images, I immediately became strange, and the responsible organization department began to use the limited information to analyze it. Trident Base Building, New York. Nick Fury, the director of the analysis department, looked up at the information flowing on the huge screens in front of him, and there was a hint of thought in his one-eyed eyes. In front of him, there are 3 rows arranged neatly, with hundreds of computers and employees operating, and he is at the forefront. Suddenly, Nick Fury asked, "What conclusion did you draw?" The agent of the analysis department, who was dressed at the side, immediately said, "According to our investigation, Tina of Scorpio, Bart of Taurus, and Alfred of suspected Phoenix have been here recently, and they often disappear mysteriously. Our people dare not monitor them directly, but with some surveillance cameras and thermal imagers set up. According to these monitoring and thermal imaging, the 3 of them will often disappear suddenly, and the disappearance time is irregular, 1 day, 2 days, and this time the longest disappearance, 5 days. The footage recorded by the space station before passing." Speaking of this, he used the instrument in his hand to operate it, and saw that one of the huge display screens froze for a while, and then displayed a dark picture in outer space. Ripples suddenly appeared in the vacuum, and then 3 meteors shuttled out of it. We analyzed that the place the 3 of them went to should be another parallel space or dimensional world, where the legendary sanctuary is. According to the comparison of the images, every time the 3 of them lose their temperament, their image will change a lot, such as their height and facial features. These are all signs of growth. You mean, they will go to the sanctuary, and then grow faster due to unknown reasons? Fury was thoughtful, and he was also inclined to this analysis in his heart. "Yes, sir." The agent of the analysis department then said with some doubts, "But there is one thing that is very strange. The way to go to the sanctuary and return to the Earth before is to come back quietly, but this time, there's a lot of fanfare." Fury took the words. "Yes, we have reason to believe that this is not without reason, and there must be something happening inside that we don't know." Fury nodded and fell into deep thought. The agent on the side was very discerning, and when he saw his boss, he kept quiet. Fury stared straight at the big screen and whispered, "So, what prompted you to change the way? Is it a warning? Is it an oath? Or are you looking for other saints? Have you calculated the trajectory of their actions? According to the final calculation, their final landing point should be in the Kuro area in the east." Kuru. Nick Fury frowned. If he can intervene at any time in other places, but they are not impossible in that country, but the restraint is too great, and he doesn't want to provoke that behemoth. Pay attention to a place and observe the movements over there at any time. Yes, Director. Chapter 43. Virgo Gold, Saint Seiya Sanzabu Kuroku Plateau. A continuous plain, stretching out under the sky, without hills, as calm as the sea on a calm day. A vast prairie is so big that it is boundless. The breeze supports the fragrance from the soil, blowing a large area of crops like ripples. Looking from afar, there are groups of white clouds wriggling on the grass, which is densely packed. Flock of sheep. From time to time came the barking of sheepdogs. What a magnificent and lofty, beautiful scenery. At this time, the cold wind was blowing, and in the distance of the grassland, on a rocky wall, a black-haired boy with a tall and straight figure and a peaceful temperament in a thin Tibetan dress was sitting cross-legged, with his eyes closed as if he was feeling something. The melodious breath spread, as if blending into this world. Beside him, a majestic Tibetan mastiff lying lazily under the rock, with its big furry head resting on its forelegs, swung its big tail from time to time. Its ears sometimes stood up, and sometimes raised its head to look at the sheep in the distance. Group. Time passed by little by little. The white clouds in the sky slowly passed by. I don't know how long it has passed. Suddenly, the Tibetan mastiff stood up abruptly, changed its lazy demeanor, looked towards the grassland to the left like a raging beast, lowered its head and bared its teeth, and let out a horrifying growl. Ho! Obviously, the guard dog from the Kuro area was vigilant. The sharp eyes reflect the 3 figures on the top of the grassland in the distance. While being vigilant, they are also a little bit surprised. Because of the aura of the 3 strange 2-legged beasts, why are they so similar to their masters? Yang Jin, I saw the boy sitting cross-legged on the rock with his eyes still closed, his handsome face with a peaceful smile that was extremely inconsistent with the environment, and he stopped the Tibetan Mastiff. The Zen spirit and peaceful aura emanating from his body made Yang Jin, who was already full of vigilance, become obedient and honest all at once. It sticks out its big tongue, shakes its big furry head, and looks harmless to humans and animals, which is quite cute. Although his eyes are closed, the boy seems to be able to see Yang Jin's simple and honest appearance, with the corners of his mouth curled into a nice arc. He turned his head to look in the distance. The companion he was waiting for has arrived. He stood up slowly, stepped on the lawn, and slowly walked up the slope. During the steps, the withered and yellow grass under his feet seemed to be alive because of the autumn wind. This melodious and natural flavor was full of zen. Shock flashed in the eyes of the three people on the watching. It seemed slow, but in the blink of an eye, the boy came in front of the three of them. It took a few seconds for the Tibetan Mastiff behind him to run to the front with all his strength, and his wet eyes were full of doubts. In its simple thinking, it is difficult to understand that its master seems to be walking slowly, but he just can't keep up. Hi, my name is Bart. My name is Tina, hello. Alfred. Hello, my name is Sangbuza. The young man named Sangbuza closed his eyes and looked calm, and his unique youthful and clear voice was like a spring, which made people feel good. Several people made simple self-introductions, and Bart looked at Sambuza carefully and said carelessly, "Are you really just awakened? Sambuza, I feel that your small universe is so strong." That's right, when they came to the earth, they immediately sensed the small universe that is also a saint. So the three went straight to the Kuro area to find their companions. But what Bart never expected was that this future companion, the small universe, is so powerful and scary that he is not inferior to Alfred at all. It caused a lot of pressure on him. Bart feels that if the two fight, he is afraid that he will lose most of the time. A saint's senses are extremely precise, and unless he deliberately hides it, he can judge the strength of the opponent's small universe at a glance. Tina opened her eyes wide and saw Sanzabu, who was a few years older than her, keep her eyes closed, and asked curiously, "Why do you keep your eyes closed?" "This is a Virgo practice method. For me, the things I see in front of me may deceive myself. I choose to close my five senses, experience, and accept everything with my heart. This will allow me to accelerate the accumulation of small universes," Sanjab explained. He has been living in the Kuro area since he was born, and has been influenced by the environment and culture here. He also agrees with the concept of gods and Buddhas. He has matured in his mind since he was young, and has a unique understanding of the world and life and death. Those who know him well know his character, which is very flat, neither fighting nor grabbing, not happy or angry. Many people in the neighborhood believe that he might be the reincarnation of Buddha, and perhaps it was because of this that he was chosen by the goddess Athena on that important day. But even if he was chosen to awaken the small universe and become a Virgo saint, it would only make it easier for him to understand the nature of the world. Of course, he also understands his responsibilities after becoming a Virgo saint. It is precisely because of this that he has no scruples in releasing the small universe to summon his companions when he senses that a terrible crisis is spreading in the world. So that's how it is. Let's compete if we have a chance in the future. Alfred's eyes flashed with fighting intent. The sense of oppression that Sanzabu brought to him not only did not make him afraid, but on the contrary, his blood was boiling. He wished to fight him now, but fortunately, Alfred knew in his heart that the most important thing now was to complete the Athena oracle. Suppressing the majestic fighting spirit in his heart, Alfred raised his head and looked at the sky. The prairie under the blue sky and white clouds was blowing by the breeze. In the blue sky, he saw the traces of evil aura that could not be seen by the naked eye. "Smiley face, say," he said solemnly. "Athena said that the earth is about to face a crisis, and evil and greedy eyes have been set on the earth, so we must act as soon as possible. Sangzabu, what do you feel?" After speaking, he turned his head and looked at Sanzabu. The handsome young man put his hands upright on his chest, and his bland expression flashed inexplicably. "Our time is running out, and the crisis has come." As soon as the voice fell, on the far side of the earth, a terrifying atmosphere exploded. The mighty pure evil breath swept across the entire earth, making the earth's weather become extreme in an instant. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, floods, typhoons, and hail spread to countless countries. Chapter 44. The Demon Lord reappears in the world. Bart, Tina, and Alfred suddenly looked up. "It's so strong and terrifying." Alfred's expression changed. He had only felt that mighty aura from Athena, and although it might not be comparable, it far surpassed them. "This is troublesome. Athena is right. The crisis has swept the world. Ah, it's really a headache. Bart grinned. But he said he had a headache. But his eyes were full of fighting spirit. Taurus never dreads a fight, but just goes forward, no matter who the opponent is. Tina said, looks like we have to rush there immediately, boom. 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 Just finished speaking. The four of them felt the cosmic eruption from all over the world. The mighty and sacred aura belonging to each constellation seemed to be announcing their position to the whole world, or perhaps declaring war on that powerful evil. We have quite a few companions. Let's go, saints. Alfred twisted his neck. A red light flashed in his eyes, and he and the three of Bart looked at each other. After finishing speaking, the footsteps were light, the air waves burst, and the grass curled and bent under the feet. The three figures turned into meteors and rushed straight to Sue, and disappeared completely into the sky with a roar and a sonic boom. Only the boy Sanzabu closed his eyes and raised his head to feel the warm sunshine. The light shone on his peaceful face, as if he could vaguely see a statue of Buddha. The devil came to the world. King Kong glared, subdued the four demons. I should leave too. The young Sanzabu said softly with his palms upright in front of his chest. After speaking, he squatted down and touched the Tibetan mastiff with its tongue sticking out and its tail. Buddy, I'll be back. Wang Yangjin seemed to understand human nature and called out softly. The owner's face was reflected in the wet eyes, and in the next second, his eyes blurred, and the figure in front of him disappeared at some point. The Tibetan mastiff sat on the ground, raised his head, and let out a soft cry again, as if to say goodbye. The voice is reluctant. As the breeze blew past, the green grass on the plateau swayed slowly and fell into peace again. The flock of sheep in the distance bleats beautifully and eats green grass, peaceful and peaceful. The Gulf of California is located in the northwest of Mexico. It is famous for its rich and unique ecological environment. There are many archipelagos, also known as the California Islands. The cliffs and sandy beaches here form an impressive natural and beautiful environment. There are more than 600 species of flora and fauna here. The submarine valley of the Gulf of California extends northward to land, forming the Salton Sea Basin, and the shore of the lake is 75 meters below the sea level. There are many volcanoes in the sea. It is also called the Red Sea because of the floating red algae. There are coral reefs along the western coast of California. During the day, under the sunshine, the sea is blue, the birds are flocking, and the turtles lie leisurely on the beach basking in the sun. The scenery is pleasant and beautiful. The starry sky is dense at night, and the hotel built by the seaside can hear the sound of waves and seagulls, and slowly fall asleep in the unique sounds of nature. You can also hug your lover on the balcony, drink fine wine, and enjoy a quiet night. Therefore, it attracts a large number of tourists from all over the world every year. However, on this day, people did not expect that a storm of the century was ushered in today. The white dew in the morning was originally another beautiful day, but here, people only feel fear and death. Because just in the middle of the night yesterday, extreme weather swept through. A typhoon of level 17 suddenly descended on the Gulf of California. The huge wind howled and blew the city into a panic. In just one night, the billboards and palm trees on the street were all blown down and smashed on the side of the road, making it look like a picture of a mess. Not only that, apart from the typhoon, a bigger crisis has arrived. People are watching the sea off the beach in hotels or on the balcony of their homes. Rows of terrifying waves have formed and are planning to hit the city. Panic has pervaded everyone's hearts. Above the sea, there were terrifying roars, screams, and roars from time to time, as if two gods were fighting on the sea. Oh my karma, why is it so unlucky? Why is there a typhoon when we travel here? Siete, is the government eating shit? Why hasn't the rescue been sent yet? I want to leave, quick. Start the helicopter and take me away. Boss, the pilot said that we can't leave now. The typhoon has reached level 17. Our helicopter cannot guarantee to break through the strong wind and leave California. There is a high probability that it will crash. Fake, fake, fake. I am a billionaire. I don't want to die here. Immediately contact the government here. Let them send rescue immediately. Good boss. What's on the other side of the sea? Why do I feel like there's something? It must be two powerful beings. They fought to cause extreme weather. What shit? Why did they come here to fight? People were panicked and anxious, and some brave guys ventured to the top floor of the building, trying to use their mobile phones to film what happened on the other side of the sea. As many people have speculated, the extreme weather is indeed on the sea dozens of nautical miles away. Boom! In the sky, Several figures fell down, smashed into the rolling waves, and crashed into the tumbling sea. Drink, at the last moment of falling into the bottom of the sea. One of the figures shouted angrily, raised his fist and punched the figure in the sky hard, and then fell into the bottom of the sea, hitting the sky-high water column. Rumble. The thunder and lightning that reached the speed of the fist filled the sky, howling and majestic, raging the sky, and the terrifying Wanjun thunder roared and continuously bombarded the figures in the sky. However, the figure grabbed the cloak behind him and waved it abruptly. The terrifying energy backflow, accompanied by a huge red energy shock wave, shattered all the thunderbolts that came from the bombardment. His figure was revealed amidst the explosion of lightning all over the sky. With red skin all over, besides wearing dirty old trousers, there is a scarlet cloak on the shoulders, and a sharp devil tail is slowly flicking at the end. Evil face, the pupils flickered greedily. He is the demon lord from hell, Mephisto. Chapter 45. The Battle of the Raging Sea. The soaring water droplets exploded in the sky. Dense water droplets continuously dripped down from the sky, engulfed in violent wind and showers, making the dim air difficult to see clearly. But for a person of Mephisto's level, this harsh environment cannot block vision at all. The rain and the strong wind hit Mephisto's body and dripped down his body. He lowered his head, with evil eyes in his eyes, and looked down at the turbulent sea. Boom, boom, boom. Following the splash, 10 figures broke through the sea and boiled into the air, floating in the air and surrounded Mephisto. The latter turned his head and glanced over one by one, reflecting the appearance of these boys and girls. These 10 people are exactly the target of his trip today, the saints say. Mephisto looks vicious on the surface. He is an extremely evil demon king, but his heart is also miserable. If he had a choice, he would definitely not choose to come to the earth from breaking through the boundaries between dimensions, and be forced to be beaten by these self-righteous stinky brats as villains. But alas, he had no choice at all. Since that day, that terrifying female broke through and beat him into submission. He had to do what he asked. He must become a trial stone, a stepping stone, and accompany these little ghosts in a scene of a saint warrior fighting a lord, so that the latter can complete a tempering. Mephisto is also greedy for the souls and bodies of these little ghosts, but when he thinks of the beautiful figure in his mind that may not be lingering for thousands of years, he can't help but shiver. Think about it or forget it. Be honest, well, he doesn't want to die. He yelled a few words angrily in his heart, but Mephisto, who was very professional, showed an evil smile on his surface, and his slightly sharp and hoarse voice passed through the sky. It's really a pleasant and nostalgic atmosphere. I said why there are so many pure and special souls in the world. Has the new generation of saints been selected? Children, do you mind handing over your souls and signing a contract with me? While speaking, the turbulent and terrifying aura overwhelmingly pressed down on the 10 newly awakened saints, and the powerful aura made the faces of the boys and girls extremely dignified. Who wants to sign a so-called contract with a demon? My soul has long been entrusted to the great Athena. One of the 17 or 18-year-old blonde boys shouted angrily. Another girl with curly silver-gray long hair said indifferently, "Devil, what is your purpose when you come to the world?" During the conversation, wisps of crystal-white frozen air spewed out. A mighty and gorgeous star phantom loomed all over her body, and a golden rippling flame radiated from her body, which belonged to her powerful small universe. The same is true for several others. Facing the girl's question, Mephisto opened his arms and accepted the baptism of the storm, his tone full of jokes. What is my purpose? As a demon, what do you think my purpose is? If you defeat me, I will let me tell you my purpose. But unfortunately, you can't do it at all. The arrogant posture made people unable to bear the anger. However, several teenagers and girls had just raised their anger, but they were instantly suppressed by reason. Among them was a teenager with short brown curly hair, and his gray pupils flashed the color of thought. No matter what other goals you have, I believe that your main goal must be us who have been chosen. Your undisguised greed has always been on us. You still dare to target us even though you know that Athena has woken up from a deep sleep. I believe your identity must not be simple. Everyone must be careful. His power may be very powerful. At least to some extent, he is not afraid of Athena. The devil's nature is cunning and cold. He is using language and performance to irritate us, so as to seize our flaws to achieve his goal. Maybe he has achieved his goal by taking one of us. Regarding the boy's warning, the others nodded silently. Mephisto showed an exaggerated look. Wow, wow, wow. What a precise judgment, kid. I really value you more and more. However, after speaking, his expression became gloomy and cold, and the turbulent aura on his body instantly rose several levels. The monstrous, terrifying, and vicious aura instantly made the air a little sticky. But brat, don't take it for granted. Don't underestimate me, boom. As soon as the words fell, his figure exploded into 10 circles instantly, and 10 identical Mephistos rushed towards the boys and girls. Everyone's pupils were illuminated by various colors of light, and they who had been vigilant for a long time roared and waved their fists in an instant. Rumble, I saw that in the dark air, in the squalling rain. A series of terrible roars exploded, and the dense air circles accompanied by the rain exploded densely. Laughter, tyrannical energy, terrifying lightning, fists that surpassed the speed of sound, and icy cold air intertwine and collide. The rolling dark clouds in the sky were continuously blown to pieces by the aftermath of the powerful impact, and the sea was churning more and more violently. The silver-gray long-haired girl yelled coquettishly. The turbulent small universe erupted and kicked Mephisto away in front of her. The crystal-clear freezing air wrapped around her body and turned suddenly to face another Murphy who was fighting with the blonde boy. Stow punched. Boom. In an instant, the frighteningly cold air swept away with a snowstorm that filled the sky. The latter was caught off guard and was directly frozen by the powerful freezing air. Seeing this, the blonde boy immediately seized the best opportunity. The small universe inside his body was burning. His short blonde hair stood on end, and the figure sprinting at high speed instantly stagnated in the air, causing a wave of air to explode. Lightning flashed in his eyes, and he punched Mephisto, who was frozen into an ice sculpture. Rumble. Dense lightning and thunder erupted and swept away, dazzling like rays of light, illuminating the sky like daytime, and the mighty thunder splashed on Mephisto, completely submerging him. However, before the blonde boy could be happy, he suddenly realized that there was a sound coming from above him, and his super-strong senses immediately issued an early warning. He suddenly looked up, and his pupils shrank suddenly. Chapter 46. The lion and the Taurus. A dense chain of black gas formed above him, swept over with its teeth and claws covering the sky and the sun. The blonde boy tried to dodge, but the black chains wound up almost instantly at a speed of several blocks, surrounding the boy heavily and wrapping his body around him. Oops. The moment the boy was entangled, he felt that something was wrong. He found that the chains around him were filled with extremely strong evil aura, trying to invade his body and soul. With his strong will, there was a trace of trance. In a trance, it seemed that the figure of Mephisto sitting on the skeleton throne appeared in his mind, trying to change his will and make him a servant of Mephisto. Fortunately, his will was as tough as steel. He woke up in an instant, and he would break free without hesitation. The flaming small universe brought enough power to destroy the world. His muscles were tense, and the muscles visible to the naked eye under the t-shirt supported the entangled chains. Wisps of black smoke and golden air collided and intertwined and fought each other. However, the boy found that the chain was far stronger than he imagined. In this brief gap, Mephisto, who was fighting another boy with brown curly hair in the distance, seized the opportunity. Mephisto, who turned into a light beam, abandoned the boy and rushed towards him, preparing to catch him and show his flaws. With a fatal blow, Mephisto was extremely fast, rushing to him in the blink of an eye. With a playful and cruel smile, the sharp claws were only a few centimeters away from his pupils in an instant. At this moment, the passage of time seemed to slow down. The blonde boy saw the anxious expression he showed when he was fighting the demons in the distance. With a look of worry, there is also a brown curly-haired boy who wants to stop the demon, who is closely following the demon. He remembered that the guy seemed to be named Aldrich, probably a cancer. I also saw the cruel and tyrannical smile on every devil's face. The drops of raindrops on the sky are suspended. The boy has no fear in his heart, only unyielding, only resignation. As he said before, when he awakened the small universe, his soul had already been handed over to Athena. Unfortunately, he had no chance to meet the great goddess who made him obsessed. When he appeared in the goddess Athena, he had longed to become a saint. He yearned for the saints who fought against the evil beings in the original picture. Unexpectedly, he was really selected, but it was about to end again. All thoughts happen in that few tenths of a second. The small universe in the boy's body has been burning at an accelerated rate. Even if he wants to die, he will make the guy in front of him pay the price. Just at this critical moment, a roar resounded through the sky. Giant horn, A golden beam of light above the sky was like a meteor coming first, smashing through the billowing dark clouds and hitting Mephisto the back in front of him. Boom! The terrifying air wave exploded, and the latter immediately slammed into the sea like a cannonball. With the exploding water column, Mephisto fell into the bottom of the sea. The blonde-haired boy was about to burn the boat just now, but now he stared blankly at the burly boy in front of him who was wearing the golden holy clothes and was a head shorter than him. The water splashed by the soaring water column hit him, and he woke up. His eyes widened. Wow, you actually have a golden holy cloth? Is this a Taurus? Hey, my name is Bart, hello? It was Bart who came, and he had already put on the golden holy clothes at this time. The gorgeous and noble golden holy clothes are draped on his body. His strong body fits perfectly with the majestic holy clothes. The gorgeous and streamlined armor, the raised shoulder armor, the leg armor have sharp spikes on the knees, and the helmet has a horn like a golden bull to pierce the sky, with a white jade cloak on his back dancing with the strong wind, full of power and destruction. My name is Elvis, and I'm Leo. Thank you for saving me, Bart. Blue pupils glanced enviously at the gorgeous armor on Bart's body, and Alves thanked Bart. Bart waved his hand boldly. We are all saints under Athena's command. We are all companions, needless to say. Then, seeing the chains wrapped around Elvis's body, he frowned. This thing on your body? Ah, what a joke. Elvis said indifferently, and after finishing speaking, he let out a low drink, and the flaming small universe immediately erupted, crackling, and the electric current in his body split and exploded from top to bottom. Hold the black chain. Bart also nodded, expressing his appreciation for the bravery of Elvis, who was obviously a head taller than himself. It's just that he didn't know that Elvis used all his strength to break the chain, and his body felt weak for a while. After all, he is also a small universe that has just awakened. After burning, he is obviously weak, but he will not show his weak side to his companions. He is a brave and fearless lion, and the lion has its own pride. Boom, boom, boom. At this time, Mephisto's figures exploded in the distance, turning into a black aura that filled the sky and gathered 10,000 meters away. From the corner of the eye, I saw the help of the other two newcomers who joined the battlefield, working together to defeat those difficult demons. One of them is a little shorter than Bart, also wearing a gorgeous and noble golden holy cloth, with a slightly different shape, but it is different from the Taurus holy cloth full of power and destruction. The holy cloth is more sharp and dangerous. A golden scorpion tail with a sharp barb at the end. The other one was dressed more plainly, but had an obvious Asian face. His handsome face was full of peace, with a little cinnabar between his brows, his eyes were closed, and he stretched out his hands in front of his chest. As if sensing everyone's attention, Bart and Tina's golden masks and helmets disappeared with golden ripples. Tina flicked her long, smooth red hair and smiled, showing her cute dimples. I'm Tina, a Scorpio. Sanzabu, Virgo. Aha, there are 3 more companions? But your small universe is much stronger than ours. Elvis twisted his neck, which surprised him a bit because it was far more than their small universe. The other 10 teenagers and girls looked at Mephisto in the distance warily, and at the same time, they also reported their names. Going to the countryside. Chapter 47. Black-bellied goddess Athena? Matthias, Leo Cub. Bernace, Andromeda. Molly, Jackal. Vic, Aquila. Olivia, Canes. Navian, Sagittarius. Santos, Ursa Major. Cain, Unicorn. Ella, Aquarius. Han, Moby Dick. The brief communication made everyone familiar with each other's names and constellations. The boys and girls glanced enviously at the golden holy clothes worn by Bart and Tina, and then set their sights on the unscrupulous and powerful demon Murphys in the middle of the sky in the distance. Support. This guy seems a little too strong. Bart's pupils reflected the majestic Mephisto, who was escaping the majestic dark aura, and said in a low voice, the induction between the strong and the strong will be very keen. The powerful oppressive aura displayed by the other party is full of the positive world, filled with the surging terrifying aura. In this space, if the will is not strong enough, it will definitely be affected. At least you will feel lost in the battle, nervous, heart palpitations, more serious. I am afraid that my soul will be invaded on the spot. In the end, he was defeated without a fight, became a walking dead, and was enslaved by the opponent. Fortunately, after the saints awakened to the small universe, they all experienced the practice as if they were there. The outside world seemed like a moment, but in the soul world, They had tried their best to undergo cruel training for many years. In the almost cruel training, everyone's will and soul have undergone a qualitative transformation, and they have become warriors in the true sense, not those who have strength but no corresponding quality and will due to technology or experiments. This oppression brought a lot of pressure to everyone, but it would not be affected. Saint fighters are unyielding fighters who dare to shake their fists at the gods. Subtly, that kind of pride goes deep into the bone marrow and soul. A mere demon, no matter how powerful it is, will not make everyone flinch or fear. Sanzabu closed his eyes, and the cinnabar between his brows seemed to be shining. He stretched out his palms on his chest, facing Mephisto, and said calmly, "I feel the extreme evil and the cowardice under the appearance of those fangs and claws, the devil, in hell, playing with people's hearts and souls, arousing fear in people's hearts, but you are afraid. So, what made you come here?" The boy was born with an exquisite heart, and he was born to be able to detect changes in people's emotions. It can be said that he has the ability to truly see through people's hearts. And he really fits Virgo. Awaken the small universe and amplify all his abilities without limit, including the ability to see through people's hearts. Mephisto is undoubtedly a very powerful existence. It is impossible for Sanzabu to surpass such a great strength to detect and see through the opponent's heart and soul, but he can still feel some. Under the strong appearance of the other party, in his perspective, he is covering up the fear and tension in his heart. So what kind of horror exists that can make Mephisto fear and nervous? This caused Sanzabu to have a little doubt. When the other saints heard Sanzabu's words, they couldn't help but feel a wave of turmoil in their hearts. Wow, this is going to be a big trouble. Elvis frowned. Just like Sanzabu said, if you think about it for a while, you will be a little terrified. Behind this terrifyingly strong demon in front of you, there is actually a more mysterious and powerful existence hidden. No matter what the other party's purpose is, this is enough to make everyone feel dignified. At the same time, he began to faintly guard against the possibility of the unknown mystery being attacked at any time. What a smart and sharp kid. Seemingly annoyed by being told, Mephisto's arrogant posture restrained, and his evil expression became cold. Looking at the serious and vigilant eyes of the young man in front of him, he felt angry inside. The flames can hardly be concealed. These stinky brats are completely ignorant of the situation, and the so-called unknown mystery that these brats are guarding against is the damned so-called goddess they believe in. It is estimated that in the eyes of these little devils, the goddess is majestic, benevolent, and kind. But actually, in Mephisto's eyes, she is a powerful, dark-hearted, and narrow-minded woman who just pretends to be kind and gentle in front of humans and soldiers under her command. When I was in Athens, I just looked at it from a distance, and then I couldn't help but slightly thought about it. In the end, without further ado, the woman directly struck a huge 200 million volt lightning, splitting part of his soul apart, and went straight into to beat herself up, forcing herself to be a stepping stone for these little devils. Evil is too evil. In comparison, Mephisto thinks this woman should be a devil. Of course, he can only hide these thoughts in his heart, and he absolutely dare not say them to these brats. In Mephisto's thinking, even if these brainwashed brats know, they will immediately fly into a rage. Rebuke yourself, and then desperately want to die with yourself. Afterwards, he believed that the woman who didn't know where she was, but who had been paying attention to this side, would kill him too. Mephisto thinks that he is a tactical confession. For the devil, the temporary confession has no psychological burden at all, and the kingly way is to survive. So, at the moment, he is a harmless little devil, honestly becoming that woman's actor, helping these damned little devils grow up. By the way, earn the faith of those stupid humans. Great, really great. Thinking of this, Mephisto couldn't help being moved, and his mind stretched out. If he can satisfy the goddess, can he become the other party's white gloves? You can also ask for a wave of benefits. He knew that the goddess who he couldn't even see behind him must be an ancient and great than himself. It is much better to follow the boss than to dominate alone. Mephisto has always had his own ambition, which is to become stronger, to truly dominate the entire dimension of hell, and become the king of hell, not a demon lord. As for whether the black-bellied goddess will accept her, Mephisto has never considered it a problem. No one would refuse the submission of a strong heavenly father. Chapter 48. Shattering the meteorite group. Why Mephisto raised such an idea is simple. That was the result after thinking about it. First of all, the powerful power of Athena conquered him, and the supreme mage Gu was also strong enough to kill him to hell, so he signed the non-aggression contract with the hammer. He admitted that the Ancient One was strong, but he would not be conquered. In his eyes, the Ancient One was stronger than him to a limited extent, and he had a mortal body, and his lifespan was approaching. After death, his soul and magic had to be recovered by Emperor Weishan. He waited patiently for the other party to die. But Athena is different. This is a real god, who controls the priesthood, has an infinite lifespan, and is a crushing force for him, and the potential is visible to the naked eye, and the opponent's power will explode over time. Increase. And the heals are very ancient and mysterious. Being able to write freely can create a large number of super powerful warrior legions, just like the gang of brats in front of them. Smiley face. The power granted has the same root and origin, and these little devils have been reborn, from thin mortal bodies to powerful fighters, and they are also the kind with extremely mature hearts, which really shocked Mephisto. All things added up, Mephisto naturally wanted to benefit from Athena, and he has a feeling in the dark that if he goes down this path, his future destiny will undergo unpredictable changes, and this change may make him go further. Mephisto's surface was cold and terrifying at this time, but the boys and girls never expected that the terrifying demon in front of him was already thinking about how to become the white gloves of the goddess Athena. Mephisto, who intends to perform with all his strength to show his abilities, grinned his mouth full of sharp teeth and spewed out a strong Martian sulfur breath. His voice was like a whale in a deep abyss. Tell me, smart little devils, you claim to be the guardians of the world, so tell me, facing a city that is about to be destroyed, and there are 740,000 people who are about to die, what should you do? These words exploded in the hearts of all the saints like thunder. Everyone turned their heads and looked back instantly. Their pupils shrank suddenly. It turned out that, at some point, thousands of meters of sea waves rolled up around the entire bay, and the waves covered the sky and the sun. Invading a city can completely overturn the entire city in less than 10 seconds. More than 700,000 innocent human beings in the city will be buried in the sea. Even the calm Sanzaba's eyelids moved, and a trace of anger flashed across his calm expression, obviously angry at the demon's secret attempt to stir up the storm and destroy the city. Suppressing his anger, Sanzabu calmed down and spoke, and his voice was transmitted to everyone's ears. Elvis, you guys go to solve the wave. Leave this to us. Hold on. Elvis and the other saints did not hesitate. They were exceptionally decisive, and instantly turned into pops and flew towards the city. Mephisto laughed ferociously. My little devils, you will have to pay for underestimating me, boom. The surging breath instantly stirred up the sky, and the billowing black clouds and black smoke rolled layer by layer. He raised one hand high, and saw red light shining in the rolling black smoke and black clouds in the sky. In the next second, huge meteorites burning with flames exploded from them, splitting into hundreds of meteorites of different sizes. The smallest one reached 100 meters in diameter, and the largest one was even thousands of meters wide. It was so loud that the rolling roar burst into all directions. Dragging the long flame, the meteorite rain illuminates the dark sky, but unlike the warmth brought by the sun, these lights imply death. Each meteorite has the power to destroy a town with ease. This doomsday scene made Bart and Tina, Alfred and Sanzabu look dignified. Bart twisted his neck, fighting like hell. Damn idiot, you shouldn't underestimate us. We are the saints under Athena's command. The last few words sounded like they could roar through the sky. With the turbulent sound, the majestic small universe in his body began to burn with the soaring fighting spirit, and the dazzling golden air flow exploded all over his body instantly. With the brilliant golden starlight particles flickering like fireworks, with a bang, the figure shot straight into the sky in an instant. There was another loud bang. Tina's figure also turned into a golden light beam and followed closely behind. Facing the densely packed hundreds of falling and burning meteorites, Bart and Tina showed no fear on their faces. The body of Bart, who was flying at high speed, spun slightly, and the turbulent air wave exploded. The fist with the golden glove tightly aimed at the sky and punched hard. Boom! The starlight suddenly appeared, and the shock wave turned into bright meteors. Tens of thousands of meteors recoiled and rolled up into the sky. The powerful sonic fist collided with the falling meteorites together with the huge impact torrent. Rumble. As if the sky was split, pieces of meteorites were blasted into pieces, splashing flames all over the sky, turning into a sea of flames to render the sky, and even the clouds were burned into the shape of burning clouds. In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen meteorites were pulverized by Sonic Fist, while the other 30 or so large meteorites were smashed into thousands of tiny meteorites, which fell in all directions. Fortunately, Tina, who was following behind, saw this. Her pupils were dyed red. The burning small universe erupted violently, and the turbulent air flow spread wantonly. The white jade cloak worn by the golden saint clothes swayed wildly. The golden light spun in the air and finally went straight, revealing her figure. A scarlet airflow flowed from his body. The arms spread out and suddenly began to spin. Scorpio tactics, scarlet whirlwind. Boom. The scarlet storm ravaged the sky with Tina's body spinning. Terrible winds, golden lightning, heavy rain, and other natural disaster-level powers were displayed at this moment, filling the sky for tens of thousands of kilometers. A devastating natural disaster broke out. The powerful scarlet whirlwind wantonly destroyed, collided, and devoured the meteorite group. The tiny meteorites that exploded were instantly melted, evaporated, and annihilated. Several of the largest meteorites could not escape the fate of being wiped out. The meteorite crisis was instantly resolved by the two saints. However, the crisis that belongs to the city is still going on. Just below the city, people watched in horror as the 1,000-meter-large waves that covered the sky and the sun hit them. Chapter 49. Freezing air storm. Everyone's eyes were full of despair. The huge tsunami crushed the last ray of hope in people's hearts. No one can survive such a disaster. The faces of people who have lost hope are ashen. At the last moment of their lives, they embrace their family members, their lovers silently waiting for death, and some hold their children and cry. If possible, these parents would rather die than have their children accompany them together. There were also people who collapsed and roared wildly because they couldn't accept it. The vicissitudes of life are revealed at this moment. But at the last moment of his life, before the terrifying tsunami was about to land in the city, terrifying roars came one after another from above the sky. Not only that, even the clouds in the sky turned red. People don't know what happened on the sky because the 1,000-meter waves block their sight. But to the astonishment of the people, they saw that one after another the bright starlight fell, piercing the dark sky, and it was like that ray of light, bringing people the hope of life. The sound was like thunder, and the sound of shouts of anger resounded in all directions. I saw the starlight burst, and the figures of the boys and girls either landed on the top floor of a certain building, or floated in the air less than a few tens of meters from the ground, or fell directly to the ground. They are far apart, and they are all on the edge of the city. Looking down, it happens to be U-shaped, facing the roaring 1,000-meter waves. After landing on the edge of the roof of a building in the city, Ella's small universe erupted instantly, and the cold and crystal-clear freezing gas turned into a snowstorm and revolved around her. At this time, she was as beautiful and powerful as a goddess of ice and snow. The freezing air seemed to freeze even the air. The wisps of snow made the people in the building below tremble uncontrollably. They didn't know what happened. Only the people in the hotel opposite looked up at the top floor of the building with amazed eyes. In the storm of snowflakes, the better figure is looming, and the silver hair dances with the wind, just like the lotus in the snow mountain. This beautiful gesture is unforgettable, because it was so amazing that I even forgot the fear in my heart. Ella didn't know about this. Her gaze was focused on the huge wave that hit her face in front of her. The battle with Mephisto just now cost her a lot of small universe. Now let her solve the wave without affecting the city. There is more than enough heart, but not enough strength. Fortunately, she is not alone. The clothes on her body fluttered. She stretched out her hands, and the freezing air storm around her became more and more wild. Drink. The cold color of the beautiful eyes printed with blue light flashed past, and he clenched his fist and punched in the direction of the waves. Boom. In an instant, the endless snowflakes turned into a storm and swept forward. Everything they passed was frozen. In the shocked eyes of all the people nearby, they saw that the waves that were about to reach a height of 1,000 meters were instantly crushed. Freeze. The ice waterfall all over the sky rushed backwards into the sky, and the tumbling sea thousands of meters behind the waves was also condensed. Crack, crack. The sound of freezing kept ringing, and the 1,000-meter ocean waves were frozen and frozen outside the beach, covering the sky and the sun. Under the shadow of the burning clouds, they reflected various beautiful rays of light. Nice job. Elvis, who was floating in midair not far away, then accepted, completely burning the remaining small universe in his body. Inspired boundless power, shouted loudly, and also punched. Rumble. In an instant, the light of the punch appeared, and the majestic sonic punch turned into a huge impact torrent, destroying the frozen ocean waves, annihilated into tiny crystal-clear ice particles, and falling down from the sky profusely. The fiery red clouds, crystal snowflakes, and ice particles are intertwined, and the picture has such a sense of dream. It is like a beautiful picture in a CG movie. Solving the crisis on one side, there was a sound of shouting in the ear, and the gushing small universes one by one. Elvis turned his head and saw that the crisis of the tsunami in the city of the bay had been perfectly solved by the saints. Solve. Even though everyone has just awakened the small universe, they are all natural disasters in human form. If it wasn't for the excessive consumption of the small universe due to the previous battle with Mephisto, and the need to worry about whether it will affect the city, in fact, only one saint can perfect solution. Hitting the sonic punch, the small universe in the body burned up, and the saints in the sky fell from the sky one by one, landing on the top floor of the building, on the roadside billboards, or on the canopy of trees. Everyone did not have the joy of resolving the crisis, but immediately set their sights on the battlefield in the distant sky, because the biggest crisis is not over yet. On the contrary, the people in the city were so excited that they couldn't help themselves. From despair to the tsunami being resolved, this mental journey cannot be described in words. But people are more curious about the group of boys and girls who suddenly fell from the sky and rescued them. Many wondered why these young men and women had such power. But more people have already guessed what. They all excitedly pointed their mobile phones at the nearby saint fighters and shouted excitedly. They are saints, warriors of God chosen by Athena, and they are here to save us. Great Athena, your warriors have saved countless lives, and your generosity, your kindness spreads like light across the earth. Look over there. What's over there? Emai. It's the Golden Saint. I zoomed out and caught the Golden Saint. It's Bart and Tina, and who is that boy wearing the blue and silver holy clothes? What constellation is that? That black-haired boy with his eyes closed is very handsome. Why are his eyes closed? And what are they facing? The devil. It must be a very powerful and evil demon that can dispatch so many saint fighters. That's right. The disaster that happened before might have been caused by that demon. Many people took pictures of Ella and other saints, but the roar and fluctuations in the sky in the distance caught their attention. Then they turned the screen of the mobile phone and found the four of Athena and Mephisto battle scene. Chapter 50. The unyielding phoenix. It didn't take long for Ella and others to solve the tsunami crisis. It probably took less than a minute from flying to the city to smashing the tsunami. However, in this 1 minute, Mephisto, Bart, and Tina had already clashed countless times. Fist-to-flesh collisions, magic, and the aftermath of the sparks generated by the interweaving of the Saint Warriors' tactics have all been more than tens of thousands of times. It can be said that from the perspective of human vision, one can only hear the sound and see the airwaves generated by the collision, but cannot see the figure. The speed has long been beyond the grasp of the optic nerve. For a minute, the battle between Mephisto and Bart was on the verge of death almost every minute and every second. It can be described as a battle of wits and courage, that kind of frightening battle. It can be said that it is possible to be recruited at any time and anywhere, be severely injured, or even die. As a result, Mephisto really saw the horror of the Saint Warrior. What is Heavenly Father? They have initially been able to see through the essence and rules of the universe, and they can also be said to be omnipotent, no different from a divine residence. A star-level powerhouse can be easily killed with just one look. The high-ranking ones kill the low-ranking ones in seconds, and the sub-celestial fathers can't last long in front of the heavenly fathers. However, it was rare for him to finish the instant kill on the four people in front of him. Even though he didn't use all his strength, even if he had great suppression, he saw the boundless potential and talent in these four boys and girls that he was envious of. Smiley face. The series of deadly routines he designed in the battle, the opponents suffered a disadvantage, and the next time they used it, it would be completely useless, and they even cooperated with each other to reverse the designed routines. The opponent's talent in combat almost surpassed that of some fighters. Fighting race. It can be said that they are born fighters. Even Mephisto believes that at the same level, these saints are completely crushing existences, and there are no shortcomings in the true sense. The shock in Mephisto's heart is beyond words. It can be seen from the side that the goddess is terrifying. He could fully foresee that in the future, a group of Heavenly Father-level invincible troops would be born soon. Mephisto's heart is hot. The more the other party shows, the more he believes that his choice is not wrong. Only by surrendering to such an existence can he go further. So the performance is more serious. Of course, there is also the meaning of demonstration. Even if he wants to surrender to the goddess, he must show his due value. Mephisto knows this well. A whip made of hellfire swept across, knocking the four of Bart into the air, floating in the sky, leaning against the terrible typhoon connecting the sky and the earth, and in the strong wind, his crazy laughter was transmitted to everyone's ears. It's so interesting, little devils. The more you don't give up, the more interested I am in your souls. Hard work? Bravery? Unyielding? Torturing people with such qualities is more interesting, isn't it? I believe you should feel the gap between us. Little devils, surrender to me. I can give you more powerful power, endless life, and the supreme glory. The scarlet cloak swinging wildly in the wind on his back matched his appearance and posture, as if he was a demon king who ruled the world. However, the four people who were beaten into the air forcibly stopped their figures 1,000 meters away, floating in the air. Alfred's eyes were blazing with flames, and he wiped the blood overflowing from the corner of his mouth with his thumb contemptuously, and said, "How can a mere devil deserve to be proud? Phoenix, surrender. Only Athena can make me surrender." Every word with incomparable will, the voice gradually became louder, and the last name was said, and the sound shook the sea and the sky. Boom. Using faith and will as fuel, he continued to burn the hidden energy in his body. He was almost exhausted, and new power burst out from his body again. The powerful small universe made the holy phoenix cloth on his body shine brightly. The phantom of the proud and beautiful phoenix appeared behind him, singing loudly. Alfred is never the most talkative, but he must be the most ruthless. In his heart, the only one who is truly supreme is Athena, who gave him a new life. The contemptuous words of the demon in front of him are undoubtedly desecrating his last gleam of light. The burning flame driven by anger made Alfred vow to burn the demon in front of him to ashes. After the voice fell, the air wave exploded along with the sparks, and his figure turned into a flash of fire and rushed towards Mephisto, and the three of Bart behind him also had cold expressions, turning into 3 rays of light to form a triangular collision formation and followed closely behind. Alfred, who was the first to rush in front of him, raised his hand and hit a sonic punch. However, Mephisto, who already knew the brats in front of him, punched him not to be outdone. Rumble. At the moment of confrontation, an undeniably huge shock wave burst out from the center of the two of them, sweeping away in all directions, and the collision of the phoenix flames and the flames have exploded into flames that filled the sky, almost to engulf the two figures. At this time, Tina's figure leaped up to the sky above the firelight. Her white cloak fluttered, her eyes shone with red halos. She stretched out her index finger at Mephisto's looming figure in the firelight and played the Scorpio tactic. Scarlet Poison Needle. The previous battle had allowed Tina to pinpoint the flaws in the body of Mephisto's demon. The structure of the demon is obviously different from that of the human body, and the acupuncture points are different, but it does not mean that there are no dead spots. Small and sharp scarlet beams burst out from between Tina's index fingers, pointing to the 3 inches of Mephisto's armpit. For Tina's attack, Bart and Sanzabu directly acted as cover. Bart roared and flung his cloak violently, and the giant horns were shot out directly. As for Sanzabu, he opened his eyes, his peaceful gaze has become sharp, the vast small universe blooms. He pinches the seal with both hands and aims at Mephisto. Behind him are the faint shadows of the Buddha and the kingdom of God, powerful spiritual power it spewed out, pointing directly at Mephisto. Divine determination. The terrifying spiritual force instantly invaded Mephisto's soul, using powerful spiritual force to oppress him and fix him in place so that he could not move. Under the city, in the eyes of Ella and others, the Taurus horn composed of emerald green energy and the scarlet poisonous needle hit Mephisto's body in succession. Boom!